could be a dream. Life could be a dream. Do, 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 shampoo.
Obviously have taken off. So like since you've been in real estate, you've seen social media kind of become like you have to have it now to really be successful in real estate.
Yeah. So my background is primarily commercial real estate, which is a different world than most people think of in real estate. And originally my first 5 or 6 years in real estate, I don't think I did anything social media at all. And it became apparent 2 or 3 years into clubs real estate that it wasn't going to work, me doing it on my own. And I had to hire that out. And I tried at first taking and hiring a third-party team to do it. Yeah. And I realized that just wasn't going to work either. I needed someone who was dedicated to us, who was inside, who knew our brand, who knew what we were going for. And every week we can meet and say, let's tweak this, let's tweak that, let's do this differently. How do we get the crew involved in this? How do we, talk about metrics and what's driving traffic? And there's a saying that says what gets measured gets done. Yeah. And I am a stickler for metrics. You can just about ask anyone on my team. They're like, stop looking at those. And I'm like, no, that's what we're going to do.
Yep. So. It's kind of like the, I think they mastered that movie that had come out with like Brad Pitt, Moneyball, for the baseball teams and how you're able to do that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of like the social media part for pretty much any business now. It's kind of like you have to read these metrics on how things are going on your social media to really know how you're actually doing and what you're pulling from it or whatnot. But I don't know. But the creative side of real estate and businesses and things like that have really just blown up here. I would say in the past, I would say post-COVID was kind of like when we started seeing like the artistic side of this. That's the reason why I said like these new real estate ads that are coming out for real estate agents and homes, specific homes that they're selling. It went from more of an informative, like, oh, this is a house that we're trying to sell. These are the amount of bedrooms. And then just like showing this to like actually putting a story into the actual trailer or the video itself. Did you get that?
Yeah, I was just waiting for a break to throw it up.
Yeah, throw it. Yeah, you can throw it up whenever you want, man. I'll show you this because this was pretty. This is that one that I was telling you about.
Yeah, I think I've seen this one.
Have you? This is crazy, right? Like, it's like all us.
Yeah, I think within the Realtor community, I went to a class with Brian not too long ago, and everyone he's known for this video now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So what are they saying?
Well, there's one particular scene, and I'll let you pick it out.
Are you being serious?
No, I do. I don't want to piss off Brian.
Yeah, so like this whole thing, ambiance, the music, everything is just like spot on.
Yeah, I think I can say this in a very nice way. Brian is one of the more artistic realtors. Like he has great concept for these things.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he came up with this on his own, but
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if he did. Look at his Louis Vuitton bag. Yeah. I mean, this like captures you emotionally, though. It's kind of it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is also, you can tell, a quite expensive home. Like there's some money to play with in this.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, they did a good job with it.
Oh, no. It's...
Oh, those sheets do look comfy. I could go for a cup of coffee right now.
Yeah. Well, it is one of those things where it's like, when you watch something like this, you're like, none of this really has to do with anything of like buying the home or but it does show you, like, I don't know, it's like telling a story of, like, if you're living in the home, I guess, and, like, this is like a vacation away from home. I can kind of pick up on what the whole gist of it is.
Well, I think part of the idea here is I'm not throwing real estate in your face.
Yeah. It's yeah. Well, yeah, it's not somebody that's getting on there and, you know, has the, I'm going to walk through the whole house. This is great. This is blah, blah, blah. This is like, hey, look, these are the scenes. These are your shots. These are the best views of the house.
Yeah.
And then it gives that story, captures you emotionally. I have several people on my freaking Facebook that are real estate agents, though. And
there's only like 2,300 of us in Bay County.
By one point in time, I think there were more real estate agents than there were freaking homes.
there might have been.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Back during COVID. So it's like, that was the reason why I'm
then homes listed for sure.
Look, I love my little brother. I love him to death. But man, when he said he was going into real estate, I was like, dude, if you do it, you're gonna have to go balls to the wall to freaking make it happen because there's so many of those guys out there. Fortunately, he's been fairly successful. So it's been kind of like, oh, okay, well, he was serious about it. But like, I know several people that went into real estate and they were out of real estate really quick.
Well, you know, and that's why we have very strict standards for what we do with our team. Like, we don't hire part-time realtors.
Yeah.
And I force all of our new realtors to go through a 60-day program that's taught by me and Ashley McLaughlin, who's our senior residential associate. She's been with us the longest. And also on the board of directors for the Central Panhandle Association of Realtors. We're big on training. We're big on knowledge.
Yeah.
And to one of my mentors, Neil Jones, said, this is what we sell. We sell knowledge. Yeah. So if you don't know what you're talking about, then you're completely useless.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put words in Neil's mouth, but you really don't deserve to get paid if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's a big portion of real estate is we continuously push knowing what you're doing. And quite frankly, the state exam does not give you that. They give you a bunch on the legal side and the things that you need to know. And when I took my exam, I missed a question that said, if your broker dies, how long do you have to continue to operate as a broker until you have to find it, or continue to operate as a sales associate until you have to find a new broker? And I'm thinking to myself, if my broker dies, I'll go look this up. This isn't a commit to memory type question, but that's what we get tested on for the state exam. So we turn out a bunch of real estate agents who don't really understand what they're getting into, and they might have a basic concept of Florida real estate law, but without a broker who's willing to invest in them, teach them things, and help them grow, you're kind of doomed to fail from the start. And that's one of the biggest problems we see in real estate.
I think I've never worked in the real estate realm, but stories that I've heard, yeah, it does sound like a lot of people go out, they get their license, they go work for a broker, and then it's like sink or swim. And so, but it seems like there's a lot more to the game than I know. Dude, the only thing I ever sold, I sold meat door to door. I sold magazines door to door.
I did that in middle school, I think. Yeah.
I sold funeral plots and funeral arrangements door to door. I did that for Kent Forest Lawn, or Carriage Services. I worked for Brodnicki for a while.
Yeah. I'll tell you about the worst deal I ever made a little bit later on that theme.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. This guy, he saw me coming. He scheduled an appointment with my admin, and I met him down in the conference room. And before you know it, I'd bought 2 years of the back page of the funeral home magazine ad. And I just remember leaving that meeting feeling so defeated because I was like, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And I walked upstairs, and my admin looked at me, and she said, you want to check for what? And I was like, I already committed to it. I'm too late now.
Yeah. Yeah, so then of course I sold cars, but like, yeah, it does seem like pretty much all the sales jobs that I've ever had never really came. There's only one place that I know of that did training, and they did training daily, and that was Bill Kramer Chevrolet.
Yeah.
They do the Grant Cardone, you had a lesson every day that you had to complete.
Mm-hmm.
And it went through different types of objections that you're going to hear from a customer or whatever, due to whatever it could be, paint of the car, not the type of interior that I'm looking for, whatever. There was all these different ways of handling it. Don't have enough for a down payment. And they did that daily. And then they had, I think it was like Cardone University, that you had to like complete all these different segments to be able to stay a salesman there. So it was like a requirement. Thought that was great. And then I went to go sell cars at other places, and they didn't do anything like that. Like no other dealership that I ever worked at did that. All the other dealerships, they try to do a little bit of sales training here and there. Yeah. But when it comes to real estate, I mean, you're dealing with a big boys game. I mean, you start getting up into $1 million homes and things like that. You're not treating them the same as if they were coming in to buy a $25,000 Honda. It's a little bit different.
My background being commercial, I had a guy that kind of mentored me a little bit, and this was back when I was at Berkshire Hathaway, right after Berkshire had bought Prudential Commercial. And this guy said, 98% of the people in the world, the most expensive thing they'll ever buy in their life is their home. The other 2%, the most expensive thing they'll ever buy is the piece of property they're buying for their business, and that's what you're representing them in. And that's kind of a weird thought as a 24-year-old at the time. I'm representing people and buying some of the most expensive purchases they'll ever make. And now we have a residential division and we represent people in that. And I just don't think it's fair to our customers to let agents go in there and not be well informed. Yeah. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart. Like, we will not take your money for not representing you well.
Well, that's a good thing. Well, okay, so real estate's not the only thing you're in. You've also got... you got a handyman service. You have a lawn care company. What all do you have? You got your hands in the pot in a couple of different things.
Well, so we do property management as part of the real estate company. And we got to about 200 tenants, and we're really struggling to find vendors that could do kind of the day-to-day task. Something like, hey, I need to clean up my flower bed in the front yard, or I need to change, I got a light switch that isn't working, or change the lights out. Yep, something like that, or the locks rather. And it's really embarrassing as a property manager to tell the owner, like, hey, I know it's been 2 months, but we haven't completed that job yet because I can't get anyone to do it because it's only going to cost $60. Or if I'm going to get them to do it, then it's going to be $800, which is also embarrassing to say, hey, I changed your lock for $800. So eventually we just got to the point where this was a constant struggle, and it was taking a ton of my time. So I said, we're just going to start a maintenance company. Like, these things aren't difficult to do, but they need to be done. And so that's where we went. And now we're not even a year in, and we got 2 full-time guys, and we do all the landscaping stuff, all that kind of handyman stuff that doesn't require a license, and not a business license, but we're not a plumber or an electrician or anything like that. But if it's something that we can do and we can take care of our customers or third-party customers, it kind of works all the way around.
Yep. And then you also run Beer and Bible.
Yes. I do that as well.
So I want you to explain this just for some of the listeners that are out there, because normally when I say Beer and Bible to somebody, they're like, isn't that like an oxymoron?
Do they go together?
Yeah, how do they go together or whatever?
We got some T-shirts made that said Beer and Bible, yeah, they can go together. Because that is the first question we get basically every time we say that. I'm a firm believer that alcohol is a gift from God, and I'm not saying that... I'm not saying that in like everyone needs to drink alcohol. That's not what I'm getting at. But I can tell you there's places in the Old Testament where God actually allowed alcohol as a sacrifice to him. And never did he say, you know what, give me all your tarot cards. So if if it were something that was not good, he would not allow it as a sacrifice. Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine, and it was clear based on the context that there was alcohol in this wine.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I think the argument is, well, wine is not done the same way that it was done today as it was done back then. There's no alcohol that's in it. Blah 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 blah.
Well, we can thank Mr. Welch's for figuring out the process to create grape juice without fermentation in the 1860s, which, in case you're struggling with the timeline, there is quite a bit after Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Welch's. Appreciate that. I'm not a big fan of grape juice myself, but
Yeah.
some people might be.
Yeah, so they can go together. I think I've gone to several of the studies that you guys have, and I think
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It doesn't bother me, and no, not people aren't getting sloshed and trashed, and
No, and we would
arguing
believe
about the
that was
Bible.
sinful, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't think that getting trashed is what God has in store for us.
yeah.
But we also think that it is okay to enjoy a beer or two. And to go further than that, Paul talks about in Romans, like, when you're a baby Christian or you've got something you struggle with or you're personally convicted, that could be wrong for you.
Yeah.
And if you've struggled with alcohol addiction or really any form of addiction that you feel like this might be a stumbling block for you, we don't believe this is the Bible study for you. And we will happily find you a Bible study that is for you.
Yeah.
Right? But Jesus also calls us to meet folks where they're at. And we find there's a lot of sinners in the bar, just like there are everywhere else. So may as well meet them there.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a beer and talking about the Bible. And we try and be a group that's completely the correct level to meet anyone where they're at.
Yeah.
We don't dig off in a 4-week study on 3 verses of Corinthians. Like, it's all in the Gospels because Jesus meets us where we're at, and the gospel is, to quote J.D. Greer, the gospel is not the diving board from which we jump into the pool of Christianity. It's the pool.
Yeah.
Like, you can keep diving deeper into the gospel, but you're never going to get past it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like having the conversation about alcohol and religion and the Bible, because then it's like the one that I heard the most growing up was my mom would always be like, well, your body's a temple and you don't put anything like that in your body as far as like alcohol, because it's like a poison. And I'm like, cool. So that means you got to go out. Now that I'm an adult, when somebody says something as ridiculous as that, I'll say something like, well, that's great. So how many times did you eat at McDonald's this month?
Yeah.
How many times did you
That
eat
fried
Chick-fil-A?
shrimp I had yesterday,
How much did you have?
promise you was much worse for me
did
than
you
this
have
beer
a
I'm
soda?
drinking.
Well, a soda is 10 times worse for you than a beer than a beer is.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you start talking about the 39 grams carbohydrates are in like a Dr. Pepper or something like that.
It's been a while since
And
I've
it's
had a
like
Dr. Pepper.
4.6 in a beer. You know, I mean, or even if you drink a full flavored, not light beer, you're still talking 18 grams carbs, something like that. But it's like the sugar content and this GMO and all these different types of chemicals that people are putting in their body. If you're even what you buy at the store, chicken tenders, French fries, all this stuff, and then you're going to sit there and you're going to demonize somebody for having a beer or two after work, and it's like, and then you use that scripture to be like, well, your body's a temple and you're putting alcohol in it. It's really bad for you, and it's like not as bad as all the sugar and freaking saturated fats that you put in your body today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're gonna live that scripture and you're gonna use that against people that you just don't like because you feel like you have a say, then you better use it against your own self as well.
That's actually something that I can't stand, and I find to be rather frequent. And I'm not even blaming these people, but we frequently take scripture out of context. And someone will say something, and I'll be like, well, what's the context of that was in? And often they can't tell you that. And then when they go look it up, they're like, it didn't really say what I thought it said. I don't frequently correct people on this, but like Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans not to harm you, but to prosper you, to give you a future and a hope. Well, we're in the middle of Jeremiah's prophecies here, and there's a bunch of Israelites who've been exiled to Babylon, and he's speaking pretty specifically to them. So unless you happen to be exiled to Babylon, I'd say...
You're probably...
Yeah, I mean,
it's a story.
There might be some
us.
general themes you can gather from this, but I don't know that God's plan is to prosper every single one of us, at least not in the way that we might see, we might take and apply that context today. There certainly is prosperity in Jesus, and I'm not trying to say that, but I'm also not going to say that there's a prosperity gospel where the world works for you. Because, in fact, it's quite contrary to that. The world works against you.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be war if it were easy.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole argument, not trying to bring politics in.
Yeah.
Bring politics directly into
religion.
But it's so funny because I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like,
separation of church and state doesn't exist either, so here we are.
What I thought was hilarious was they said, if Jesus was around today, he would be a Democrat. And I was like, what? How do you get that? And it's like, well, he's all about, not taking more than what you need, and then being generous with what you do earn. And then if you go into the parable and the story of, Jesus talking about the guy who shows up to work late, you know what I'm talking about. And it's like he gets paid for the whole day, but the guy that was there all day working gets paid the same amount of money.
Well,
and
that's because that's what they agreed to. I'd call that capitalism, but
but it's like, oh yeah, that's perfect definition of what communism would be. And so Jesus would actually probably fall as a Democrat today. And it's like a lot of these things used in the Bible, and this is one of the reasons why I don't go to too many Bible studies, because these types of things will come up, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, all right, come on, man. Like, at this point, you're just twisting around.
Oh, and I challenge you to say, like, we're in a fallen world, Ron. Like, Bible studies are made up of a bunch of crazy people. And that is the joy of the Bible study, if you ask me, is you get a bunch of people with different perspectives. Now, there has to be someone there to facilitate who can say, like, you know what, we're going to pause this conversation because this really isn't productive.
No, there were not aliens that came here and brought Jesus up, dude. I don't know where you got that from.
Well, and that's why someone to facilitate is so important at a Bible study, because you have to have someone who's like, we're going to squash this topic, not that you can't talk about it, but that we're not going to spend everyone's time as you discuss the aliens and Stonehenge and how that relates to Paul in the first century. Great topic. I hope you enjoy that. We're not going to talk about it with all of us. That's just part of it.
Yeah. But those are the types of things. That's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped going to a couple Bible studies here and there. But
back to your point on Jesus being a Democrat, I think an important point for me on that.
I don't believe that.
Okay. Someone else's point on Jesus being a Democrat. I think there's a huge difference in allowing us to have the free will to give out of our own heart to the poor and the needy and the widows and the orphans, as we would say in Scripture, and to say that the government is going to force us to get like, you know what? That's the exact opposite of free will, which Jesus was pretty clear on. And in fact, God from the beginning of time has been pretty clear on, I want you to have the ability to choose to do right and choose to do wrong. And I don't think it's bad that I choose not to give to a society that, not that I'm evading taxes. That's what I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think it's bad that someone.
We got it on camera. He said it. He's got to taxes. Got it.
That someone decides that they don't want to give to something that is then going to further something they don't believe in. Like, I'm a huge fan of the first kind of churches that popped up where they assigned a few folks, including Stephen, who was the first martyr in the book of Acts, to take care of the orphans and the widows within the church. And the beauty of that is that they assigned these folks so they could have the discretion to know, okay, these folks are doing what they need to do and they need to be taken care of. And then these folks are just squandering cash. And I don't think we have that same discretion in the world today. And that's I'm not advocating don't pay your taxes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not a huge fan of taxes myself, but, well, absorbent taxes, let's put it that way. But I don't want to pay for things that I completely don't agree with. Yeah. And I think that's, if it were to be a perfect world from my perspective, I think that charity and the church should take care of these things instead of being forced to give to them. And if we say, oh, well, the charity and the church won't be funded well enough, then I'd say, well, people's hearts aren't where they need to be. And that's their prerogative, quite frankly. I would do all I could do to take care of the orphans and the widows that I felt were really trying and making it happen.
I know I'm coming on the fence on all that stuff, but most of it is, but no, I do not believe that Jesus was a Democrat. Or I don't believe that he would fall under the category or the description of that today. But so
Jesus was clearly a pro-transsexual rights. No, that's a lie.
I was like, I don't know where you got that from, but okay.
I was just taking the platform of the Democratic Party. Maybe we should nix that.
No, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
So cool. When was the last? So you also are a pilot.
You know how you know when there's a pilot in the room?
No.
They'll tell you.
Normally, I'm surprised you didn't already bring it up. By the way, I'm a pilot.
No.
By the way,
I thought about wearing my shirt, but
did you buy a plane?
You
bought a plane recently.
So I am a partner in an airplane. I didn't buy it by myself, but I'm working really hard to get it to the point where I can fly it, because one of my partners got to fly it to Panama City Airport, and then we took it apart, and I haven't flown it yet.
We took it apart? You took it apart?
I'm not an A&P. I need to be an A&P in order to do that. But my dad happens to be, so we got some father-son bonding time as we took this airplane apart.
What was wrong with it?
It's the former airplane owners. It's a 1970s model airplane. So
is it a jet or is it a prop?
Heck no, it's not a jet. I can't afford none of that. It's a Cessna 172. It's a little plane, great for poking holes in the sky. But the former owners used it for spotting fish for a long time, and they had all sorts of different antennas as they added new things. So we've been in the process of removing equipment and old antennas and things that are kind of obsolete. So like ADF, for instance, was developed, I think it was...
So can you take this plane on vacation? Like if you want to go travel somewhere, can you
it depends on where I want to go, but yeah.
So what's the process on that? Because at one point in time, so you don't have to go through like TSA or anything like that when you put stuff on your plane. How does this work? I mean, there's got to be some type of regulation.
International?
International, domestic, whatever. You go through both, but like how are you regulated by what can go on your plane and what can't go on your plane?
I mean, there are some regulations, but really it's pretty slim. I mean, if it's me and my buddy flying my airplane and I want to carry a whole host of guns with me, I can do it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I guess if you got ramp checked, it might throw up some flags while you've got 45 guns on your airplane with you. But technically, it's not illegal. Now, that's domestically. And there are actually some states that have regulations against having guns at airports. So So if you happen to land it in one of those states,
I guess like one of the things that like I'm thinking about is like international flights. So obviously, human trafficking, child trafficking is like a huge thing in the world right now.
Right.
So if you're saying that someone with like a private pilot's license or something like that. Kendall, feel free to look up any regulations that you could probably find on that.
Oh, great. I'm really up to speed on my
federal
air regulations.
Like I'm curious about it because, this is a huge topic in the world right now, especially human trafficking and stuff like that. So when you sit there and you say that, like, well, there's not really many regulations on that, it's kind of scary in a way because, people that can afford
speaking
planes.
More domestically, right?
Yeah.
International travel is a whole different beast, really. So I'd have to take off and land in an international airport, and
Well, so our international airport here, you've ran me through this before. The only reason why we have an international airport is because of the port. Because of,
So we already have a customs base here.
Yeah.
Which is what makes the international airport possible.
Yeah.
And so I would have to clear customs at my point of exit from the United States, and then I have to clear customs at my point of entry for my next country. So I couldn't theoretically just go land at some random airstrip in the Bahamas. It would need to be an international airport as my first port of entry. Then I'd clear customs, and then I could fly wherever in the Bahamas I wanted to.
So clear customs. So they're going to come and check your plane and all
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you think about like the human trafficking and things like that, actually, I don't know if you've been in a plane recently, but most of the airlines have put stickers in the restrooms basically saying, "Hey, are you traveling against your will?" Let a flight attendant know.
No,
So
I haven't seen that ever.
so yeah, it's a real thing. I know Southwest, Delta, and American all do it. Those are the last three I've flown on, but a lot of human trafficking comes in that way through your kind of standard forms of travel. We've got some pretty great radars in the United States now.
Yeah.
So unless you're in a really remote area, which movies like American Made, with Tom Cruise, I don't know if you've seen that one, like where they were just opening a hatch in the airplane and dumping all the drugs in the swamps in Louisiana. That was kind of the idea there, is when they finally landed, they didn't have anything on them.
Yeah.
So that's you can't do that with humans. Like, I mean, the guy who's jumped out of a bunch of airplanes let's say, it would be more difficult to do that with humans who are not feeling doing that.
Yeah.
Right. But, all right. Did I ever tell you about the time I won the Heineken beer pouring contest in Amsterdam?
No, you can drop a crate with people in it if you really wanted to. It's gonna be a hard landing,
the
but
bigger
you'll
the airplane,
survive.
the harder it is to evade radar.
Yeah.
Right. And especially you get into your jet classes, like it's gonna be a blip on the radar, and they don't do well at all flying low.
Yeah.
Like that's why your airliners fly higher, because the level of efficiency is so much greater. So the sooner they can get higher,
What's
the
the
better.
highest that you've flown?
Me personally,
Yeah.
10 or 11,000 feet.
I've jumped higher than that.
Yeah. There's not really any need for me to go higher. Like, honestly, the only reason I've gotten that high has been flying over mountains. So, my typical flight would be...
So you've flown, where all have you flown then? Because you said over the mountains.
So
Colorado or something?
I haven't personally flown to Colorado. I've flown to a few different spots in Tennessee that had some pretty decent mountains.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Carolinas too, actually.
Yeah. So you haven't done any international flights, or have you?
So I have not as pilot in command, but I have flown in helicopters from here to Dominican Republic a couple times. So that was two or three different countries.
Gwen got some Colombian Bam Bam. What countries have you been to? Earlier you had said, go ahead.
Just for flying, or in general?
No, just in general. It sounded like you've traveled abroad.
I've done a decent bit of travel. My first out of country experience, well, if you don't count my cruise to the Bahamas when I was real young, but I'd say probably Japan. I think I was 12 when I went to Japan.
Japan, that's freaking Kendall's territory right there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I remember.
Did you look up any of those laws? Did you find anything that was interesting?
I mean, it all came back as pretty standard. I mean,
I didn't know if they were like regulated. That's all I was asking.
A lot of it runs through ICAO, the International Civil Air. I don't know. It's the International Air.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What does ICAO stand for, Kendall? ICAO.
Japan. What'd you do in Japan?
So my dad's in the helicopter business, which is how I got interested in flying, and he was looking at buying some helicopters over there from a company that was going under. So we went over there and looked at helicopters, and ended up going to Tokyo Disney on their 1-year anniversary. Actually, it was packed. It didn't get to ride anything.
What year was that?
2001 or 2.
Yeah, I'm like, we were like 13, 12.
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a youngin'.
Yeah.
It's very busy. Don't recommend going on the 1 year anniversary to any Disney World Park.
Yeah. Well, I've gone to the 50th, and I've gone to several.
Well, that
here.
lasted an entire year, Ron.
Okay, so check this out. Me and my family, we're actually huge Disney. Okay, hold on.
You know, I worked at Universal for 7 years, right?
I think we're a Universal family now.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm glad-
good.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm glad that you don't want to spend any more money with the rat because he's far too big to be a mouse.
He, I'm gonna start referring to it as he, the rat, fucking Mickey.
Mickey rat.
We're a huge. I grew up. I think from the time I was probably 7 or 8, we had annual passes.
Okay.
All the way up to, when I left for the Army, which is when I was like 26. And then I came back home.
It's a lot of years of annual passes, Ron.
It is. It's a lot. And then I tried to recently do it with my family, but man, dude, they've just gotten too... Trying to be careful with my words. Well, I don't know why. Why am I trying to be careful with my words? They've gotten way too liberal for me, dude. 150 freaking %. So check this out. This past time, I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast at all yet. Good topic.
Well, I can tell you, like my last
I
couple
might
years
need
at
another
Universal.
beer before I start this. I need a beer before I start this.
Okay.
Because Kendall knows. Kendall's over there, like, oh, here we go. Well, I was going to bring up why I'm no longer doing. The first trip that we took when I got out of the Army, the lockdowns were still going on. So like masks were like a huge thing. It was like 100 degrees down in there, and they're trying to get you to wear masks outside, walking around. Then they came out with the reservation system. I think the reservation system is probably...
That's one of those things that started with COVID and just kind of snowballed into a post-COVID thing.
They had to do it because of how many people were coming to Florida because we were free.
Yeah.
We could live life. All these other people that were coming from the other states.
You might have to wear a mask, but at least you could do something.
Yeah, you could actually do something. Yeah, so I get it why they had to do it. Well, they kept it going. But then, dude, Disney gets super... dude, it's way more packed than when we were kids. You know what I'm saying?
I went a couple years ago with my sister, nieces, whole family, and I was just like, this is not enjoyable.
No,
That's
it
the
wasn't.
way I see it. Like,
it wasn't then, and it wasn't the experience that I'd normally got from Disney. And as gay as this is going to sound, because I grew up going all the time, there's a certain, and anybody who has been going to Disney for years and years and years knows where I'm coming from when I say this. Mm-hmm. You do not go to Disney now and get the same experience that you got 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's a completely different place. The people that they hire aren't as friendly. They're not as helpful. Now, I've noticed that in the parks, service from cast members is horrible. Mm-hmm. The resorts, they still maintain a really, really good customer service base that still has that classic Disney feel. Mm-hmm.
I'd say from an inside perspective, not that I've worked for Disney, but working in the theme park industry, the parks are really difficult to manage. You have requirements set forth by the attraction manufacturers as far as who should be able to work there. And obviously I know more about Universal than I know about Disney, but like Revenge of the Mummy, for instance, where I worked, you had to be 21. And quite frankly, a lot of your theme park workers don't, like, you're much more likely to find someone 16 to 20 than 24 to work at an attraction. So it's difficult to staff them. And Disney has a union that again, never having worked there, but the people that I've found that work there seem to think that the union's more intertwined with Disney's management than they are with the average team member. So you run into a lot of, we're unionized, but we're really kind of not.
Yeah. When you worked down there at Universal, you made friends with other people that worked at Disney and stuff like that.
So a lot of times, actually, team members will work at both parks.
Really?
Yeah, it's not uncommon. My trainer at Universal also worked the Jungle Cruise at Disney. So it's
is it
very
like that
common.
when you work in a theme park, you work a regular ride? Like you don't. I thought. So I guess I look at it, and again, this is small town boy mind. But like I worked at Shipwreck growing up, so I worked there for 3 seasons, and like you would work all the rides eventually over the time period of the summer.
No, it is not like that. So do you know the difference in a theme park and an amusement park?
Well, one's themed, and one is.
I'll give Universal a pat on the back here. They spent $1.2 million to ship a tree from Africa for Jurassic Park.
Well, hold on now. When you start talking about that with Disney does that a lot. Now Disney
is the original theme park.
Well, so I'm a nutcase when it comes to like history of Disney. So it's like knowing that the flowers that are in like the Canadian Pavilion there in Epcot, they actually set up a biodome. That way the flowers could actually get acclimated to be able to survive in Florida. They did the same thing in China. And they do that there. If you look at places like Raglan Road, which is a Irish pub that's in Disney Springs. That whole place was constructed in Ireland, and then it was sent over here, and then it was put pieced together.
Well, and
so like
and
they
that,
do that. Disney does that a lot.
No, they both do.
Yeah,
And Disney's an excellent theme park, and I'd say Walt Disney was probably the pioneer of the theme park.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard the story that Walt Disney saw forgive me my lands here, but saw a cowboy walking through
that's
Tomorrowland.
They have the underground, the tunnels. Yeah.
So the tunnels are.
Not just that, the trash is done that way.
Yeah, at Magic Kingdom it is. Not all of the parks at Magic Kingdom. Universal, the trash is actually handled externally, so everything runs like the park is a circle, right? But everything has an exit.
Yeah.
So every single attraction, every single building has a way to get trash out without it necessarily being in the public view. And if it doesn't, then there's a storage facility that waits until the park's closed.
Yeah.
And that's another thing most people don't realize is the park is not open when the park is open. Like the park actually comes alive the second they call it the sweep. There's a security sweep, and all the security guards form a line and push everybody out of the park. And the second that sweep passes, there's a radio call past each door, and that door flings open, and there's cranes, and there's street sweepers, and there's garbage trucks, and there's tractor trailers that come in with all the festivities for the next day, and everything comes alive overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, gardeners are sitting there. It's kind of weird for me watching a gardener work on plants at 2 a.m., but I've seen it done, and that's just... Like, it is a huge operation to run one of those theme parks. I find it super intriguing. And honestly, had I not gotten a raise to $10 an hour for my 5-year anniversary, I probably would still be there.
Well, no, that's good. But we need to talk about Universal. But the reason why I stopped Disney.
Yeah.
So we had taken that first trip when I got out of the Army. We stayed at the Swan and Dolphin. Didn't stay in any of the resorts because I wanted to stay by Epcot because we were there during the Food and Wine Festival. Me and Nia, we've been going to the Food and Wine Festival. I don't think we've missed a year yet.
Do they have a food and beer festival I'm not aware of? Because I'd be about that.
Well, I mean, the Food and Wine Festival has a bunch of different extra beers that are added to the. So it's
okay.
Well, you could pretty much just say
I've
food and
only
alcohol.
done the Epcot drink around the world thing once, and
food and alcohol festival. That's what they should call it. Because no doubt, I mean, they got champagnes, they've got beer, they've got all the different. But anyway, so we went there, stayed at the Swan and Dolphin because it was closest to Epcot. Walked over to the park. That first trip. Everything was good on the hotel side. Now, of course, it's run by Marriott, the Swan and Dolphin, I think, unless I'm wrong. it's either the Marriott or the Hilton that runs that. I can't
Well, like
remember.
the Universal hotels are run by Lowe's.
Well, but all of the resort hotels are actually ran by Disney. We just didn't stay in a Disney resort.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
on man, dude, that whole thing is weird how they do that there.
Well, I think Disney was smart in that they retained some resorts for themselves, but they also realized that that was not the business that they were in initially, and they were willing to contract out the hospitality side for lodging to other companies that did that. Not to mention, it increases your availability because some people are Marriott Rewards Bonvoy members, I think they call themselves, and then there's like the IHG members for the Crown Plaza and the Holiday Inn, and you've got all the different resorts, and it allows you people who can consistently travel for whatever reason, they can use their points and come to Disney, and that's a win.
Well, so, man, dude, I keep on wanting to get on random topics when you talk about this because I'm trying to stay on what I'm saying, but because I want to go into something else. But
I could tell you like how expensive it is to run a theme park. Like we worked it out one time, and this was back 10 years ago, right?
Dude,
But
we did the math on how much Coca-Cola. If you do the math on how many visitors each park gets, I did this with one of my buddies one day because we were so busy at work that we had a lot to do. We came up with this whole thing.
Yeah.
But we came up with if each park sold only a Coke for every 4 people a day, and the amount of money that would be that they make just off of that was ridiculous.
I mean, I remember in my orientation, and this again was probably pushing 15 years ago now, actually, but
what year did you work there?
I started in 2011, and I worked there till 2018.
What?
Yeah.
What? I didn't know that. I thought you... Okay.
So I
Wait
started...
a second. So you just, like... You've only been gone from Universal for how many years?
I don't know. Don't make me do all that math. But
2, 3, 4, 6 years?
yeah, so
Whoa.
I started while I was at UCF, and I worked part-time, which was like 35 hours a week, so I didn't have to deal with all the benefits, I couldn't get past 35. Then, about a year in, I moved to Florida State, and I worked out an agreement with them to come back and work 1 weekend a month at Florida State. So I'd drive back 1 weekend a month, and that was great while I had friends there, because I just crashed at my friends' houses. But then all my friends moved from Orlando, and I moved to Tampa, and I would actually go and sleep in my truck in the team member parking lot in order to go work there. Like, I just loved the job.
Working at Universal that much?
I did. And Revenge of the Mummy, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but put through like 26,000 people a day.
Really?
And I loved people. Like, I loved that guest interaction.
And people are happy.
Yeah. I honestly,
I don't think there's that many people that are happy at Disney anymore. And the reason why is because of how much money you spend. Because I've looked at the price between Universal and Disney now. Huge difference.
What I can say is this. I worked there because I loved it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's this thing at Universal called a guest positive, which basically means someone was so touched by what you did for them that day that they'd walk up to guest services at the end or fill out a survey and they'd mention you by name.
Yeah.
Right? The attraction would probably get 20 a month.
Yeah.
Working 1 weekend a month, I got more than any other team member 1 year I was there.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because I'm not there to make my money. I was there because I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn there, but I think that's a big difference in how the guest interaction is perceived. Like, I wanted to make sure that these people had a great day because I got joy through that.
But I think that goes to the basis of just customer service as a whole, because I think it was Zig Ziglar told the story about the railroad. I don't know if you ever remember that one.
I don't think so.
I don't remember it verbatim, but it was basically there was a guy and he was working on the railroad. They were putting down the track, and then there was a young guy that was there that had just started that day, 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, whatever, and he's working on the railroad, and there's this older guy. He's probably in his 40s, And so they're both doing the same job. And there was actually a train that pulls up while they're working on the railroad. And the guy comes out of the railroad, he's got his 3-piece suit on, pocket watch, he's the owner of that railroad.
Yeah.
And he called him out. He says, "Hey, Leroy, come up here, man." And he's like, "All right." And so then he goes up there, and he was in the car with the owner for about an hour and a half. And he comes out, and then the young guy looks at him, and he says, he goes, "What were you doing in there?" He goes, "Oh, I was having breakfast with him. We had coffee." And he goes, "You know the owner of the railroad?" He goes, "I do." And he says, "How did y'all meet?" He says, "Well, me and John, we started working on the railroad the same exact day." And he goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." And he says, "The difference is that when I started working for the railroad, I was working for 63 cents a week, and he went to work for the railroad." Same thing what you're talking about. Some people go work for Universal, right?
Yeah.
But some people, go to work for, $12 an hour. There's a huge difference there.
I mean, then this is one of the things that I think is broken about corporate life is I ended up getting let go because I missed a month when I moved back to Panama City.
You got let go from Universal?
Yeah, I mean, it was amicable, but
You probably could have
my
got your job
supervisor just called me and she was like, you didn't come work last month, and that was the agreement that we had, and we'd done away with this seasonal position. Like, you can't do that anymore. So, but don't. Her exact words were, "Don't worry, you have positive rehire status."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, gee, thanks." That's
I think, me and Nia have made the joke over and over again that our retirement job is going to be going down to Orlando. And was working for one of the theme parks or something like that. Once we retire, the kids get out or whatever, we'll just go down there and do that. I don't know if I'm necessarily...
I nerd out about it. Like, I love all of the details of theme parks and theme park management. And it's not like, oh, you get a free popcorn. Like, that's not what really gets me going. It's the details of how all of that stuff works together. How at the time I was there, I started with a team of about 7,000 people at Universal. And by the time I left, Harry Potter had come in and we were up to between 11 and 12,000 people. And the way that corporation changed was crazy. Like, there was perfect example. When I started, in order to train someone, they'd say, "You've been here for a while and you haven't screwed anything up. You go train this guy." When I finished, there was a 2-month train the trainer program to become a trainer.
Yeah.
And that's just how that rapid growth changes something.
So how did it happen? Were you just at college and they were doing applications for hire at the theme parks down there, or was it just something that you applied for that you always wanted to work?
I've always loved people. I've loved the people industry, and there was no better place to have more interactions with people than to work at a theme park. So I decided I was going to go apply for that, and honestly, I kind of bombed my interview. And when they told me that they wanted to hire me, I was like, sweet. They were like, "I think you should work at Spider-Man." I was like, I don't think so.
So when you worked that seasonal job, you worked that ride for the entire season.
So it wasn't even a season. I worked that ride the entire 7 years. Now we'd have something, it's called a rescue. So basically, if there's another attraction that's understaffed that day, for some reason, like they all got drunk the night before and half the staff crew called out, something like that, they would ask
How often does that happen?
It's a theme park, pretty often. They all room together. I mean, they were paying $10 an hour. You had to be 4 to a room in order to afford your apartment. Like, it happened pretty often. But so I'd say every third day we probably sent team members to another attraction. And Revenge of the Mummy is a larger attraction as far as staffing goes. So, so I worked at all sorts of different attractions. I worked at Kid Zone a few times. I worked at Men in Black. I've got some great pictures of me without a beard at Men in Black in my Men in Black tie. I worked at Twister.
Twister. Is that still there?
No, Twister is
was
now
there.
Jimmy Fallon.
That
And-
one and King Kong are the only two that I remember. My parents took me there when I think I was like 5 or 6.
So King Kong is the soundstage that Revenge of the Mummy was built in. And the soundstage was built for King Kong. So I don't know if you know this, but within the attraction in scene 1 on the right-hand side, there's like a sarcophagus, and the mummy is wearing a cap that says Kong rules on it. And then scene 2, which is the treasure room, there's a gold statue of King Kong up on the left. And so because it was built for King Kong, the attraction actually has King Kong's tracks still in the ceiling because they didn't want to replace the roof because the roof was still good.
Yeah.
So the Kong tracks up there, they just cut it off. And during the gravity zone scene, which is what it's called, the roller coaster portion, you can look up and you can see the King Kong track still up there.
So it's like before I went to Universal before there was that Islands of Adventure?
Yeah, that was, that
Way
opened in
before.
1994, either 4 or 6, I can't remember, but it was,
I went there before because none of the, or maybe they were working on it. I went there before the Hulk was there, Harry Potter, all of that.
Yeah.
We wanted, did you ever work there during Haunted Horror Nights?
Halloween Horror Nights, yes, that's why I failed most of my first year of college, actually. Yeah.
What?
Turns out my side gig job that was supposed to be fun scheduled me till 3:30 in the morning, and then you have to go get changed. Then I had to drive an hour home, and my 8 a.m. classes didn't happen very often. My dad wasn't thrilled.
But did you actually get to be one of the people that...
So one of the things I loved about Revenge of the Mummy is we were theming all the time. So I got really good at staring contests, basically is what it was.
Yeah.
And you know, the deep voices and the exclamations about Imhotep and all the fun.
Yeah.
So we just kind of ramped it up for Halloween Horror Nights. I didn't ever do any houses or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was a great time. I remember I kicked some guy out for smoking in the queue one time, and it was great because I got to be legitimately angry, and it was just part of my job.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've never gone to Halloween Horror Nights. I had the opportunity once, but I never did. But all of the people that
We
I
should
know
make
of
that happen, Ron.
Have you actually? Well, obviously you've gone and done it.
So they have a preview night, which is kind of a dual purpose night.
Off topic, but on topic.
Okay.
Our haunted house that we had here downtown at the Visual Arts Center. That was legit.
Nobody asked me to be a part of it.
That is the craziest haunted house that I've been in locally ever. I think they did. I don't agree with some of the theming that they did. I'm kind of... I think they should have had an age restriction, and maybe they did on it. The first thing...
How old are you? 34?
Oh, I have my kids with me.
Oh, okay.
I have
I
my
was just wondering if the age restriction should have been like 36 or something.
No, I had my 4-year-old boy and my 5-year-old daughter with me, and
Oops.
it was kind of the first thing that you see when you come in is a nun wearing a upside down cross. So there's a little bit of sacrilegious stuff that was in there. Lots of exorcism type stuff.
Good thing they didn't call me.
Yeah, well, it was the whole thing of like, they did it. It was very, very, like if they scared dude, like it was freaky for me because I don't do good with heebie-jeebie bullcrap. But as far as for my kids, I mean, they were scarred for a while. Kendall was with us. Actually, it was Kendall's idea.
Yeah, it was.
It's funny you mentioned that because Universal is so over the top about all of that religious stuff.
Yeah.
Like so,
Not doing it or doing
not doing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I appreciate
I'm okay
that.
with monsters. I'm okay with getting chased down with a chainsaw or
Perfect
whatever.
example. When I started at Revenge of the Mummy, in order to clear a car, everyone on the platform has to give a thumbs up, right? And like that's just part of it because you have to say all 3 of you have done your checks and you agree that it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, when I started, we'd do like this after we gave our thumbs up. And there was some religious couple from some foreign country that was offended by our thumbs down, and they quit for like 2 years. Like, I got in trouble one time
Welcome to America.
For not knowing that we couldn't do a thumbs down anymore. I did a thumbs down, and I was like, "What are y'all doing, guys? I thought this was like what we did," and I got pulled off the line and replaced to be talked to about doing the thumbs down.
Thumbs down,
and
because
I
it
was
was
like,
religious
I'm
themed?
so sorry that one couple out of 14 million people who've ridden this attraction was offended by our thumbs down. So, I mean, obviously, I don't like religious things. Like I don't want to be
Not trying to
inconsiderate,
start-
but
yeah.
there is also a point where it's like, you know what? I could make up a lot of religions if I really wanted to be offended by something.
Yeah. But yeah, no, here locally, when they did that at the Performing Arts Center, I think that's the Performing Arts Center or the Arts Center or whatever they call it down there.
The
It's
Visual Arts Center.
Visual Arts Center.
Yeah, right
not
across from
performing.
history class there on Harrison. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they did it. It was a long haunted house too. Like I was like, okay, when's this going to end? Because my kids
minus
were,
the sacrilege, it sounds like something I'd like to be involved in. So
no, it was it was a pretty decent thing that they had set up. Again, I can respect the artistic side and the amount of work that went on to go do it, but as far as the themes, like I don't necessarily agree with the themes, but dude, they did. I mean,
if you want to have a staring contest, Ron, we can do that right now. Okay.
I'm pretty good at those.
Oh, look, winners aren't losers. I'm so glad that I could be the one to capture your reaction to this.
That looks like the cover of a Dr. Seuss book. Okay, I can read that book to my kids before they go to bed at night.
Yeah. Thank you for appeasing me and letting us play this, because that's one of my favorite books, actually.
Out of all the people that have come on my show so far, nobody has critiqued the lighting or has requested as much stuff from my producer as you.
Oh, well, you know, I'm a winner. What can I say?
Well, that's a good thing, right? That shows he actually cares about his production of it.
I do.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. We
care about
need
the
more
production.
people that come on and
In
do
fact,
that.
Christmas is coming up. I might buy you some new lights entirely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
we
I'm going to
also-
need a Club's real estate ad spot in
We
in
can make
exchange.
that happen.
Done.
We can make that happen.
Done.
Okay, perfect.
Done, son.
But not kind of. I want to go with that since Ron brought it up, and it's kind of on topic for us because Ron said, "Oh, he probably bought that for him." But with how your conversation is going with Chris, I mean, you could tell him about the books I always get him because Chris, I don't know if you know.
Well,
I do not.
There is kind of a resurgence tying into Beer and Bible of people trying to find more traditional ways to bring their children, and kind of, you know, when we grew up to rock against the system, you know, it was punk rock, piercings, tattoos, and now it's kind of, you know, kind of your baby Christians, I think is how you put it. That's how you rock against the system, is being traditional, conservative, and so that's what these kids are leaning into. I mean, you see it in the TikToks. That's kind of what brought me into Christianity as a new Christian person, is probably more of the extremist stuff, the Ave Christo and the Crusaders and stuff, especially with how COVID went. But no, the books I usually get them are the ones for this year are the Church Commission and the CIA, the Peanuts about how welfare is bad. The first year it was The Right to Bear Arms, and then they're all kids' books, so it's like bears, right?
yeah.
And
The right to bear arms.
yeah, they're not giving up their claws, and
They've been, yeah, he's done great. He's actually written a couple of books here too, where he's put some stuff together, which I think...
A quick
this kinda
quick
goes-
plug for Kendall,
well,
the author.
So humor, well, not humor, but just let me run you through this run of the mill, whatever. I'm gonna run you through like the way that I'm looking at stuff. It goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about when it comes to theme parks, right?
Theme
so it's
parks
like-
and Jesus.
Right now, the family unit, I believe, is and I said this when I was running for office. I was at a debate or a forum or something, and I said this and people laughed at me, including people who are running, but it was like, the family unit is under attack right now, and it really does come down to who we're electing in office, who's making decisions, but it does also come down to where you're putting your money. One of the reasons why I started the podcast was because I want to know who I'm spending my money with, and if I can have local business owners on, and you can kind of get their perspective as where they're at, as not necessarily politically, but morally.
Yeah.
I want to spend my money with people who have good morals, good ethical values. If I can get people on my podcast where I'm able to like show that in the local area, and those companies are successful. Those are the companies that also donate into schools and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But if you go into like the theme park aspect, the reason why me and my family won't go back to Disney is it's not because you are tolerant of other thinking. It's that you are telling me that I have to be tolerant to everyone's thinking. So you can own a company and you can say, like Disney. So this past time when we went down, me and my daughter went to try to go get on a ride, and it turned out you had to have like a reservation for this ride, whatever. But the person that was explaining this to me was a man with a goatee, braided hair, a mini skirt, mascara, and lipstick on. And it's like you did push that on me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that I'm saying that person is a bad person. It's not that I'm saying that the company is bad. But what I am saying is that you pushed that on me. And so I won't be back because I don't want to subject my child to that. I don't. So
I think if I might interrupt you real quick, if you don't mind.
Well, I was going to finish.
Go ahead.
Let me finish real quick. So where does it start where we start to bring our kids up to have to be morally and ethically sound? Well, it starts with education. And so, like, if we have more authors and more children influencers who are coming out and are actually still, don't make it political, but still make it, I'm a traditional guy. So, like, my son has already shot his first rifle, and he's only 4. You know, he's around that. I mean, we go to church. We're trying to raise our children in a certain way to where we don't want to confuse them.
Right.
And right now, the only thing that, and I'll say it, the education system, TV, media, whatever, it seems like right now everybody wants to get children questioning things at a pretty young age. I'm all about free thinking. I'm all about, having your own opinions and all of that. There is an age, though, where your mind is not fully developed to really understand what is going on. And we see this happening throughout the country right now, that we actually have an epidemic that nobody talks about. Like the whole trans thing and the whole parents pushing their kids like, hey, it's okay to be gay and all that. And now these kids are now up into their teens and even into their 20s. And they're going, my parents pretty much ruined my life because they didn't parent me. They just agreed with whatever the trend was doing at the time. So we're seeing that a lot. I think these books, not necessarily that one, but I think a lot of books that are coming out now from conservative authors and having a little bit of that basis. I think that's something that we kind of need at this point. But
so personally, and I can say my background on this is my mom was a Christian marriage and family therapist my entire life growing up. And because of that, I have always kind of been interested in the science of relationships, and that might be the relationship with you and your kid or with you and your spouse or with whatever it is. And I unfortunately can't cite this author, but there's a analogy that I really like, and it's parenting with a funnel. Now, what tends to happen if you don't cognitively think of this is you let your young kids do whatever they want. So they've got this wide breadth of a funnel, right? And as they get older, when they start to do things you don't like, you start to narrow in on them. Well, that causes rebellion, is what that causes, right? Instead, we should have instead of the upside down funnel, we should have a right side up funnel, where at the bottom, you start pretty strict with your kids. And as they get older, you start to let them make their mistakes, but you've trained them from the beginning what morals look like, right? And I think that is one of the things that we as society are lacking, especially in single-parent homes. And I don't mean that to say like, oh my gosh, single-parent homes are terrible. It happens, and I would, it causes a lot of pain in kids. I'm blessed to not have to have gone through this, but I've seen multiple situations where their parents are fighting against each other instead of cohesively looking to raise their kids.
Yeah.
And that is not a great situation for kids to grow up in. So when you look at it that way, I think kids need a firm foundation to grow upon.
Yeah.
And they will go out and they will make their own mistakes. I know I have. I could guess that you probably did too, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to go out and you have to learn on your own, but you come back to the foundation that you had when you were young. Now, when I was 16, 17, I didn't necessarily see it this way, but as a 34-year-old that doesn't have kids, and full disclosure, I don't have kids, right? So I'm speaking all of this from theory.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have it nearly as figured out as I thought a 34-year-old would when I was 16, right? Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Well, I don't think that there's like a firm, like, there's no instruction book that comes along with kids. Mm-hmm. However, though, I think, man, dude,
It's not about what your parents say. It's about what they do. Mm-hmm. When there's a situation that doesn't really, maybe you don't even fully understand as a kid, but then you recall it as an adult and you're like, I saw my dad make this decision that I didn't realize at the time was real hard. Mm-hmm. Or, my mom told me this thing one time that she knew was not going to be easy for me, and she told me anyway. And I developed that level of respect for my parents, and I still have it. I disagree with my dad all the time. We do a lot of different work together because he invests in a lot of real estate. I manage a lot of it for him. We do a lot of different deals, and I handle zone changes and developments, and he's a partner in a lot of the things I do. We can't hardly agree to save our life sometimes, but I respect the man. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I hope I can instill in my kids one day.
No, I think that's a good point. Going back to what you said a couple of minutes ago, though, about the funnel. Mm-hmm. There were times, especially growing up, when I was a kid, my dad wasn't around a lot. Mm-hmm. My dad worked a lot.
Right.
My mom.
Mine did too. Actually.
Yeah. So like your mom, my mom. Good people are like, your mama's boy. And I was like, kind of.
She raised me.
That's who was there. That's who was there pretty much a lot of the time. And so, I was just saying to somebody the other day, I think I can count on two hands how many baseball games I remember my dad being on. Maybe. I mean, out of the whole from kindergarten up to middle school,
we just
high school.
quit playing sports.
Well, but the thing about it is
it had nothing to do with me being not athletic.
Where I was going with that though, with this funnel, like my dad was a parent, was a father, was a dad for up until I was probably about 23. Mm-hmm. When something about that age, when I hit that age, that was the age where my dad became more of a mentor. Yeah. Before that, it was more like that authoritarian, keeping me in line, keeping me in check, making sure I'm headed in the right direction. And then it was like once I got into my younger 20s, my dad became like this mentor of and how you have a good mentor is when they tell you this is the person you need to go talk to about this particular subject. Mm-hmm. I'm not the one. Yeah. I think that's it's good for your kids to see that you don't have all the answers for something sometimes. So it's like,
when you're 6 years old, there's not a whole lot I can't tackle, but
Yeah.
but when you hit 20,
when you're-
like there's some realms that you might have questions in that I just am not qualified to answer. And
yeah, well, it was like, going into sales, even when I got into my, 18, 19, and then going into my younger 20s, my dad was the one that was like, this is the person you need to go talk to about this. And then that person ended up becoming my mentor in sales, which, Jack Stewart was like kind of that guy that got me. I ended up,
excellent salesman, if I do say so myself. Can we
ended up-
plug RV Connections real quick?
He was the guy. And what's so funny is, and so Jack doesn't know this, and so he might listen to this. This will be kind of funny. If it was not for Jack Stewart, I would still probably be 220 plus pounds and cleaning carpet. That guy, I don't think it's amazing because sometimes you'll like try to explain something to somebody and they just kind of, yeah, right. And it's like, no, dude, you don't understand.
No,
Like,
you clearly didn't get
I
this. Let's try
cleaned-
again.
I cleaned the carpet. I cleaned the carpet on his boat one afternoon, and my dad's company always cleaned RV Connections. They did the carpet cleaning and used RVs that they got in and stuff like that.
Helping them turn them around.
Yep. And so I had a job, and I went and got on his boat, and I cleaned the carpet on his boat. And this guy had a very serious conversation with me because I had said to him, he asked me like how much money I had made like throughout the day, throughout the week, what I was making, type stuff like that. And at the time, it was always like one of those things that was like rude to talk about how much money you make or how much money you bring in or whatever. So I was kind of hesitant to like tell him about it or whatever. And he was just like, he told me, because I upselled him on Scotch Guard for his, whatever.
He was like, I like this kid.
And so, I don't know if it was so much that, but I think it was pretty much like, yeah, sure, I don't care. Just go ahead and Scotch Guard.
Sure,
But,
what the hell?
So I had done this job, and I was getting paid at the end, and I had sat there and I talked to him for about 15 minutes on his boat, and he was telling me, because I told him, I said, hey, my dad said if I wanted to get into sales, you're the guy to talk to. Like, and he's like, oh, you need to start doing this. You need to learn this. Go look this up. Start reading these types of books. He gave me a list of like. This guy didn't give me some type of. This is how you know everything on social media is bullshit. It's because they sit there and they're like, this is the perfect way to become the greatest salesman in the world.
And you can learn it in 3 minutes and 37 seconds.
And he's like, none of that. He was get this book. This is the person you want to like, and this is so you kind of. But then I remember him saying, he says, the problem is not your ability, the problem is your mindset. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, so I need to have a different mindset. And sure enough, man, I went into sales, and then I realized, like, sales was not the end-all, be-all. The end-all, be-all was understanding that through those books, through working with people, through learning, like, the business, it was, okay, where do you need to be? Type thing. Like, what is your thing? And that kind of like jump-started my mindset. But what's interesting about it is I give a lot of credit to Jack, but my dad was the one that was that mentorship, or my dad was the one that was like, I don't know how to help you to be successful in this realm. Because my dad, growing up in Mariana, he came here for a better opportunity, and he brought us here. My dad's like, okay, you need to go talk to people that have made it in this area, and this is how you do it. So, I mean, fathers
find the person who's done what you're trying to do and talk to them.
But I learned a lot from that because every single time I try to go and do something now that's new, that's different, that's out of the ordinary, or that like not everybody does, is I go find the person that's good at that. It was a good building block to understanding how you're going to be successful at anything. And I learned it from my dad. My dad was
interesting thought process. And I can tell you a specific story. My dad is not, he's in sales in some extent, right? Yeah. But he's in sales with people that are very into the technical knowledge.
Yeah.
So, and he has the technical knowledge, right? And I'm not saying he's a bad-looking guy or doesn't dress well. That's not what I'm trying to say. In fact, I look a lot like him, so I think he's pretty darn good-looking. But the point being, I manage a property that Jack's a partner in, and I was walking in front of him one day on this property, and he goes, "Chris, those shorts and that shirt do not match. In fact, they're clashing real hard." And I doubt Jack even remembers this, but I learned a heck of a lot from my dad, and I knew that Jack was a good salesman.
Yeah.
But he gave me that piece of unsolicited advice that kind of hurt at the moment because I was already in sales, and I was like, why do I look like an idiot right now? And Jack was just brash enough to be like, "Chris, you need to change this." And I appreciated that. And like I said, he probably doesn't even remember it, but I can remember exactly where I was when I learned that I couldn't wear checkered pants and a striped shirt at the same time. But it's those kind of things. Like, your parents introduce you to the people that influence you in areas that they can't. My dad has the fashion sense of a brick, and quite frankly, I got that from him. Yeah. Right? And I've had to learn, not that fashion is an area that I particularly care about, but I have to be presentable in my job. Yeah. And so those types of things are things that I wouldn't have learned from my parents, and that the people that they had surrounded me with growing up, I've known Jack since I was born. Yeah. And those relationships are just as important in some ways as your parents themselves. Who do your parents surround themselves with, and what knowledge can they bring to the table? People who care about you, even in ways that might hurt in the moment. Mm-hmm. So much in the same way that you were feeling a level of discomfort when he asked, "Hey, what did you make today?"
Yeah.
Like those types of things get you thinking. And they make lasting impressions throughout your life. And I'm wearing some expensive clothes right now that honestly I could say I wouldn't be wearing if it weren't for Jack Stewart. So thanks, Jack.
Yeah. Well, if it wouldn't have, golly, we're doing so much of this. Anyway, this is dedicated to Jack Stewart. Anyway, no, he...
and let's shout out to Neil, too, because his son, I managed... a couple of his properties too, so thanks, Neil.
Yeah, no. If it wasn't for that instance on that boat, I would have never gone into sales. I would have never joined the Army because along with that, again, there was all those little conversations that I had with Jack, even when I was working at RV Connections, because I was there for a year exactly, like on the nose, and what I learned, he would, every once in a while, he would come over. I remember him doing the pie chart with how to, basically, balance your life. I remember those types of conversations about health, getting in shape, staying fit, being healthy.
He does like the gym.
But I will tell you, again, if it wouldn't have been for those conversations, I would have never ended up, I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have kids. I would have never joined the Army. I would have, I wouldn't.
No, I have 0 of those 3 under my belt.
Yeah, I don't, because I was going down a rough road too. Even when I left RV Connections, I had some vices that were a little too much. And then I was in and out of relationships, and I had, it was bad. And, but a lot of those same things were I remember sitting down in probably about 2 years before I went in the military and remembering some of those things that kind of came into play of what he was saying. I was like, hey, if I'm going to get my life on track for what I'm actually looking at doing, then I'm going to actually have to buckle down on some of these different things. I had to learn discipline in a lot of different areas. And discipline is one of those things that's it's something I feel like discipline is self-taught, and it's something that you have to implement into your own brain that you're going to have to come up with yourself. It's not necessarily something that somebody can stand over you and do.
I think a lot discipline. Of that comes right back to the scriptures. If we're just going to circle back to that, Paul says that trials and tribulations produce not great people. right? It doesn't say they produce good times. It doesn't say they produce wealth. It says they produce perseverance. As you go through the trials and tribulations, the hard times in your life, it gives you the perspective to keep going through hard times. And I don't know. I'm assuming you're in the same boat. I won't put words in your mouth, but I haven't made it.
No.
Yeah, like, you know, I've still got.
Will you ever though?
I hope not, because honestly,
I don't think anybody does.
like the way I see it and the way I discuss it with my team is, if you stop growing, you're dead.
Yeah.
Like you have to keep getting better.
Yeah.
And
I think the major correlation with that though, a lot of people measure success and where you're going by the dollar sign that goes behind something. And I still fall into that rut every once in a while, thinking that that's a thing. You know, you can go out and you can buy a million different things, make yourself look pretty, but man, dude, if your life isn't where it needs to be, I feel like success should be measured by not the accumulation of things that you are able to absorb, but like right now, mine is like the people that I surround myself with, like knowing the group of people that actually want to be in my life, want to hang out with me, whatever. I look at that as a success because I'm the type of person that people actually want to be around, people that actually want to. Yeah. I think that's major when it comes into, you know, your faith too. You want to be the type of person that people resonate to because you are not necessarily an influence, but people can come to you and talk.
Well, I mean, sticking with the scripture realm, when you look at all of Jesus' disciples, absent one or two, they all died for their faith. And Paul, in the same vein as talking about counting all joy, the trials and tribulations, talks about how he was stoned and flogged and shipwrecked and abandoned on islands. And like he goes through this entire chapter discourse of all the crap he's been through. And he's like, count it all joy. Like, is that how I feel when I get figuratively stoned or beat down with something? No, I mean, I can't say that's my first thought process. Like, it's got to be a continual growth. Yeah. And with that, you become someone who, in some cases, people want to be around, and in some cases, people can't stand. Like, there are going to be people who don't like you because of what you stand for, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't stand for it. Yeah. And that is part of it. I know it's hard to believe, but there are people who don't like either of us. Like, I've made some acquaintances that I don't think are my biggest fans, and I'm not saying that there's no fault in me for that. Like, there's certainly areas I can improve there, but at the same time, there are areas that I'm not going to give on. And if you don't like me because of that, then we're going to be okay.
Well, I think there was I sent this to Kendall, I think it was like last year or something like that. There is a funny video. Well, it's not a funny video. It's a serious video. A lot of people think it's funny.
Serious video that's kind of funny?
I think people think it's kind of funny. I wish I could bring it up. It was a reel that I'd seen like last year, but it was like after you die, your closest family members to you, so wife, mom, dad, kids, whatever, they're going to remember and talk about you for about 6 months. Friends that really you hang out with from time to time, you might have a beer with here and there, they're going to forget about you after the first 3 months. Like, this is an average. I mean, this is like calculated.
Interesting study.
And then it's like, if you do the math on that, and then you live life, like, why are you so worried about what other people think?
Yeah.
That is a huge, I mean,
that 3 months is really going to kill you even further, isn't it?
It's like those people, most of the people that, like, we just had a huge Christmas party, and most of the people that show up, I don't have a problem with any of them. I like all of them. They're all nice people or whatever. Yeah. They came over to my house, they ate food, drank, had a white elephant party. It was a great memories. Took pictures with a bunch of people.
A little
but it's
odd.
like, if you were to die, right, tomorrow, those memories, I mean, yeah, there's just a photograph that people are going to go back and they're, oh yeah, you remember Ron? Oh yeah, he was a nice guy. But like, does it really affect them? No, the life keeps moving. That's one of the things I learned in the Army. They used to say all the time was like, the Army goes rolling along with or without you. So it's like,
I have one of those kind of in the same vein. Did you want me to throw it up?
sure, go ahead. Why is he throwing that up? Oh, well, it's quick. Your girlfriend, after you passed, she moved on. But there is that one friend, he will never forget you.
That resonates with me. My best friend from 6 years old to 29, 30, Tyler Jones. And he passed away of COVID.
Yeah.
And I've known that kid my entire life. And when I was not a cool kid at all, which I can't say I am still, but I had no friends and that guy was there for me.
Yeah.
And so, I guess what I'd ask you, Ron, is what do you want people to remember about you for that 3 months?
I ask the questions. This is my show.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm flipping it over. Can we get a video about... No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of the kind of the funny things about guys who lose friends in combat. Mm-hmm. It's kind of fun. Well, it's not funny, but
peculiar maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I heard something not too long ago, and I've seen stuff like this, and I've heard about things like this before. But it's like, guy goes to war, gets shot or killed, blown up over in Afghanistan. It's like you come back home to a tent where a flag's being folded up and it's given to the spouse, and the spouse after the tent, goes up to all her close buddies, and that famous saying of looking at the comrades of the fallen soldier and being like, you just didn't know him like I knew him. And it's like, we knew him better than you did.
Yeah. You're right. We didn't know him like you knew him. We knew him in a completely different way.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some ways I'm happy I didn't know him. But
this guy was somebody that we spent time with, day in and day out, and these guys, that's one of the things that's kind of funny because it's like, when you spend a lot of time with somebody, I have a friend that I spend, I don't know if it would be, well, my wife will understand. I spend more time with one of my best friends than I do with my wife. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I can play poker with my wife, but I can't play poker with my best friend. He takes all my money. I make sure that I don't have to pay any extra money out.
Do you think you could give me any of your tells?
Huh?
Do you think you could give me any of your tells?
Tells.
Your tells. Your how I know when you've got a good hand.
Oh, how are you?
I just
know
like
if
to
I have a
also
good
take your money.
Well, I'm
in poker. I don't want to do it any other way.
The whole thing is I can bluff everybody in the room, but if my best friend is in the room and he's playing poker, I can't do the same thing in front of everybody else because I'll lose all my money. Gotta wait for him to get completely kicked out before I can actually start playing.
Yeah.
But no, that's a thing. The more you spend time with, but like I said, I actually Brian Granger, when he was on the show last week, he had said something that was kind of interesting. It was just a comment that he made. He's like, "You're really," and we didn't hit on it at all. We didn't go down this pathway. I want to now.
Hey, this seems like a great segue to ask if the court would be willing to grant me a short bathroom break.
Sure. No, Brian Granger had brought up the fact that you really only know maybe 125 to 150 people at one time, and then other people take their spot.
Yeah, they come in and come out. Yeah.
Yeah. In real estate, you probably see that a lot, right?
I mean, I've got a lot of customers that I feel like I know pretty well, but it's really on a professional level.
But you don't really know them.
It's weird because I've had some that you get that feeling like we do a lot of business together, and then you go out to dinner with them one night, they'll mention something like, "Oh, my son," and I'm like, "I don't know how we've been doing business for 8 years, and I didn't know you had a son." And that's just kind of mind-blowing for me. Cause,
but you see how people work sometimes too, because you'll know somebody for you know somebody for like 10 years. And then you're like, hey, we've never really hung out before, like outside of like this. Let's go play golf together, or let's go shoot, or let's go do whatever.
probably
and
not
then you
golf.
hang out with them, and then you're like, whoa, okay, this is why we haven't hung out.
This person is crazy, and I'm going to end up with a
Dude.
felony. Yeah. By association, of course.
It happens sometimes, like, because obviously, you know, I've met a lot of people, especially just living here as long as I have. I've known a lot of people. I've grown up with a lot of people. And then it's like, hey, like, and I'm just that friendly guy that's like, I've learned now, I don't just invite everybody over to my house. When I was in the Army, which is when I really got into my social setting of like inviting people over, it was like all of my brothers, you know, that were in the platoon or something like that, they'd come over and hang out. And it was great. It was a great time. Then I came back, and it's like I meet people that I work with, and I'm like, hey, come back to my place. We'll hang out or whatever. And it's like, ooh, I need to start inviting you guys to go like bowling in like a public setting before I just start inviting people over to hang out, like type thing. That happens, but that it's very
Hey,
easy.
Ron, you want to come over to my house sometime?
I'm just saying, like, I've had to
You haven't
be
been to
careful.
my house yet. I mean, how long have we known each other?
We've never invited me.
I would like to officially, on the record, invite you to come to my house and play poker. And invite that friend that knows your toss.
Why? So he can wipe me out, and then you can wipe him out?
Well, just so he can wipe you out. That would be enough joy for me in the evening, I think.
You haven't been to one of our poker nights.
You haven't invited me.
I thought I did.
Oh,
And then
you did
turned
one
me-
time I was out of town. But you didn't.
No, you can't say I never invited you.
Well,
Yeah.
you didn't another time, okay?
I think it is one of those things. But yeah, but to get you nailed down to something, it's like I got to do it like a couple months in advance.
I have a very busy schedule. And some of my best friends get really annoyed because I'm like, if you want me there, you should send me a Google invite, a calendar invite. That'd be a great way to get me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about development.
Oh, great. My favorite topic.
Well, okay, so we've dabbled on a lot of different things. Obviously, I'm not trying to bring the political side into things.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say.
I've had a lot of people come on the show where we talk about different things in the aspect of zoning, different aspects of development, and things of that nature.
Right.
Being a local developer, especially in real estate and all of that as well, what do you see coming with this area as being somebody like, are we on a good slope? Or are we, I don't know. Do you think, because right now, just a couple of the real estate agent friends that I have and small talk conversations, I've heard both sides. I've heard that we're overdeveloping and we're growing too rapidly. And then I've heard that we're right on track with where we need to be. Obviously, coming from somebody who ran for office, I know that our infrastructure really can't catch up with how much development is going on. But one of the things that I think Kendall and I have for you, being a local developer, is when we drive like down Back Beach, Front Beach, wherever, even throughout the city, whether it be Lynn Haven, Panama City, apartment complexes are going up like crazy, like left and right. And it doesn't match with how many people that we actually like currently have living here, I don't think.
So I'm going to talk on a macro level first. Let's talk about like the United States. We have traditionally over the last 100 years seen about a 17-year real estate cycle. And it has 4 segments to it. It has recovery, expansion, hypersupply, and recession. Okay? So I think people are probably most familiar with the recession phase because it tends to hit everybody at some level, right? And we can say that the last time that we kind of hit the bottom was 2008, right? So with that, it tells us that nationwide we're due for a recession next year. And again, this is not my crystal ball talking. This is just looking at statistics, which is, I really like statistics. Like I'm a numbers guy. So the reason that the real estate cycle works like it does, if I had to point to one thing, would be that real estate is not developed overnight, right? So we have two sides of the coin, and it's just like high school economics. It's supply and demand. So demand means we've got, in this case, looking specifically at multifamily, we've got people who are moving into town who are likely to rent, and that is your demand side. And then we've got supply, which is how many apartments we have available. Fair with that? So because apartment complexes don't come up overnight, we have multiple developers that will see a need for apartments. And for rough numbers, let's just say there's 100 people that need apartments. Well, we'll have 8 developers all decide to build 50 apartments. And it doesn't happen like that. So everybody starts building. You end up building apartments. The first 100 that come on the market do really well. But then you've got another couple hundred apartments that also come on the market. And these people can't stop midway because they've already invested too deep. Mm-hmm. So what you end up is the hyper supply phase of the real estate market. You've got more supply than you do demand. Right? When that happens, people who've just built apartment complexes start to lower their rents in order to attract customers. Those customers then have a choice, and they're really just battling for the cheaper rate. In a lot of cases, this is where your lower end or older apartment complexes come off the market and either get refurbished or demolished and repurposed, one of the two. And that's what the entire hyper supply chain of the market is about. So as new complexes come on the market, eventually we will hit a point where there's a lot of vacancy, and with a lot of vacancy, they lower their rates in order to stay full. That creates a lower rate market overall and ends in recession. It's coming. Like it has to come. And it's good for the economy for it to come because it allows a lot of regenerative building. And it'll be a few years down the road. I can say we're late as far as the general market would go. This is still speaking on a macro scale, right? So individually in Bay County, we have drivers that are affecting our supply, our demand numbers. So we have Tyndall that's bringing in a lot of people, and then we also have the fact that our political climate in Florida is bringing in a lot of people. So on a national scale, if 50 people leave Chicago and move to Florida, that shows as a net zero.
Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't show up on the national scale. Here locally, I think we're in a better position than we would be if we were in one of the less conservative states or a state with less sunshine. So we've got some pluses going for us, but eventually the laws of supply and demand will catch up with us also. So it's kind of where we're at locally. It's going to happen. Rates have already started to come down on apartments and houses for that matter, especially when you look at them relating to inflation. We dig into numbers even deeper and say, okay, well, how are high-end properties doing versus low-end properties or middle income properties? How are all those things doing? And not to get into all those details, but we see higher end properties sitting longer right now. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. We don't look at the real estate market as one curve, but rather 50 different curves. I can look at industrial, and I can look at retail, and I can look at street retail, and I can look at office, and I can look at urban office, and I can look at trends specifically in office. What are the kind of rent an office out of a building type trends, like some of the downtown offices, the office sharing, if you will. Yeah. So, all of those things contribute to the market. And I think we need to look at those as a whole and say, where does this fit? Where does that fit? The Denver School of Real Estate releases something called the Mueller Report. every quarter, and it inventories 60 markets in the United States in 7 different segments and shows where they fit on that market cycle. And more than any other time I've seen in my adult life, it's all spread out. I mean, there's a few things that agree. Like apartments are nearing hypersupply just about anywhere you go in the country. But industrial, we've got places that are in expansion mode and we've got places that are in recession.
Yeah.
And so it's really difficult when people ask this question, because they ask me this question all the time. Where's the real estate market? Well, you're going to have to be more specific than that. The real estate market is all over the board. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was it.
Did that answer your question? I might have gone a little deeper than I should have gone, but
No, that was probably what I was kind of looking for. However, I guess the influx that we've seen, I think somebody had left some stupid comment the other day because it was like, oh, we have more than 120 some odd thousand citizens. I was like, yeah, dude, I know. We've gone from 168,000 citizens to a little over 198 now, 198,000 citizens, just since 2000 and I think it's 2021, something like that. We've expanded drastically. And we talk about
but you're missing a factor there, and that's we had quite a few citizens move away after 2018.
Well,
Hurricane Michael.
So 2018 we went from I remember we didn't actually drop as much as you think we did. I think we went from 172,000 to 168. That's where that comes from. So we were at
is that countywide or what is that?
That's county. Yeah, we went from 172,000 citizens to 168 after Hurricane Michael, give or take, whatever. But since after Hurricane Michael, we went from 168 to over 190. It's like 197,000 or something. So I can't quote it right off the. If Kendall wants to look it up, he can.
Well, just for a point of conversation, because I don't know the answer to this, but 2.4 people per residence and 4,000 people we lost. So were there 1,300 residences lost? Forgive my math on that, but
no, it was 172,000 at Hurricane Michael.
Yeah,
and then it dropped to 168.
So that's 4,000 people. I mean, there's an average of 2.4 people per residence.
I don't know if that's
So that's 1,600 residences. Is that all we lost, or did they find somewhere else to live in the meantime?
Good question. I don't know if you can actually find that number.
No, I'm not.
Yep.
That's
You
what I'm
might
saying.
be
I don't
able
know
to.
I don't know the answer.
I'm talking from the Census Bureau, like what I have found, and from
that's another thing, because the Census Bureau did a 2020.
Yeah.
But they don't do another one until 2030. So a lot of the numbers that we have are extrapolated.
Oh, so they might not even be accurate.
I mean, the 2020 census should be pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But do we know what happened in 2019? Not really.
When I was looking up everything, I mean, it was seemed like it was black and white, but I could be wrong. But I know that
you could know something I don't. But the way I see it, the census happens every 10 years, and other than that, we make our best guess at the numbers.
Okay, so they're pretty much all just fudged numbers.
Well,
and we just kind of
you can ask Esri how they feel about that.
Yeah, because that was the whole thing. I think I was quoting went from 168 to like 187, and then it was like
For what years?
It was from 2000. Just look up from 2018.
Well, I have from 2017 to 2024. So what years are you looking for?
Let's see 2019. What does 2019 numbers
Yeah,
look
what
like?
is 2019?
Population 2019 would be 173,895.
That was pretty close. I said
The annual
173,000.
change was minus 12,660 people.
Okay, so 12,660 people divided by, we'll just call it 2. That's roughly 6,000 residences.
Yeah. Yeah. So, now we're well over, if you look at 2024,
196,328.
I said 187.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
Like you said,
I'll
these
allow you a
numbers are...
smidge of discrepancy there.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key points here too is when we have natural disasters like that,
Yeah.
we inject a lot of money into the economy through just insurance. And I'm not trying to say that natural disasters are good or that I'm a big fan, but what I do think is that there are times when people have properties that they, for some reason, cannot sell at their fair market value. But when the insurance company then puts a lot of money into that property that they can just pocket and then sell, and then someone else redevelops, it a lot of times closes that gap in what we're able to develop. And that's an opportunity for overall market growth. But
I think we've seen more residential though than we've seen. And again, this is getting into a realm that you might not, but maybe you do. But like it's like that whole thing of like you can build $1 million homes all over the place, and you can build these apartment complexes everywhere and charge $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment. But what jobs are going to pay for that? Because that's where I think we lack in our economy here. We don't have, we don't really have industry that's bringing in those jobs that are going to keep people here, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think there's choosing my words carefully here. I think.
Well, I know that you're in real estate, so if you're selling a house or an apartment complex or whatever, you're happy, which that's great.
Well,
but the thing about it is
I would disagree with that, and I might not be your typical real estate agent, but I really look for the overall health of the economy, which works better for us than to have. My job keeps up with inflation pretty well, right? Because home prices go up, I get paid on commission, so commissions go up. Yeah. But I would prefer to have a healthy economy where people are comfortable buying and selling than an economy of uncertainty where even though we're getting significant increases in prices, people are always scared about whether they're going to be able to buy something else, right? Like it, and maybe there's, I can't even tell you what it is, but I would rather see a healthy economy, even if it means short-term losses for our company, than see it's the hyperinflationary economy where interest rates are low and people are buying things that they really can't afford when interest rates go up and then their arm adjusts in 5 years and all of a sudden their
the longevity of something.
I don't want to see for anyone that they can no longer afford the house they bought 5 years ago. Like that's just not. It sounds good at the time, but it's not good.
Well, that's the thing. Like everybody wanted to make a big deal about the interest rates and the home values and everything like that. And that's great. But right now, if I had to buy my own house, I probably could buy it. But there are a lot of people that bought their homes back when the economy was like, 2% interest on a house.
Well, and if you got a 30-year fixed at the beginning of the 2% craze, congrats to you.
Well,
right?
I did, but my whole thing is like there are a lot of people there that live in homes right now that if they actually had to buy their house tomorrow, they couldn't. Well, that's a
big problem. But we've also got not everybody went with the 30-year fixed. We've got 5-year adjustable rates where you go for your fix for 5 years and then it adjusts. All right, we have 7-year adjustable rates where it goes for 7 years and it adjusts. So if you bought 5 years ago a 5-year adjustable rate to get a slight benefit in your rate, and now it's going to adjust, you might not be able to afford your interest payment.
Yeah. Do people were buying? I thought that was done away with a long time ago. I didn't know you could just do adjustable rates.
You absolutely can.
What?
And I didn't one for mine, but I didn't buy at the 2% range. Right, but that happens, and when that happens, now people are forced to sell, and they can't because they can't afford their mortgage, and they can't go buy something else. Really,
I didn't know that was happening.
If I look at this though, the problem is not interest rates were low and now they're higher. The problem is interest rates never should have been that low. So if you think about it. When interest rates were low, all the home prices went up because there was more demand in the market. now the interest rates have gone back up and home prices have not gone down.
Yeah.
So you're stuck with a higher price and a higher interest rate.
Yeah. I didn't know that they were still doing adjustable rates.
I mean,
I didn't know that banks still
like-
did that. I thought that the 2008. I'm not in real estate, so I don't know how it works. But
I think the important part is that you should have either. And I'm not going to say that everyone needs a real estate agent, which is it's going to be don't be mad at me, team. But if you're really savvy in this area and you decide you want to go at it on your own, that's great. Otherwise, I think you need to have a real estate agent, and not just someone who has a real estate license, but someone who really understands the ins and outs of this market to guide you on what it is you should be doing. And you can ask my team. I talk just as many people out of buying things as I do talk them into. Like we at my firm, we like to play the long game. I'd rather be your real estate agent forever than tell you that I'm happy to list this at 40% higher than what it's worth, and or that you should buy this at an interest rate that doesn't make any sense, that you're not going to be able to afford in 5 years, or those kind of things are the things that your real estate agent should be telling you, not oh, look how pretty the bathroom is, because you know what, in 10 years that bathroom ain't going to be so pretty.
Well, let's talk about this then, because real estate or commercial real estate is kind of like your bread and butter a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
So what about these guys that got these social media influencers? It was actually kind of disheartening to see, in a way, Grant Cardone, which I know you know who that is. I know you don't. He's real big on this right now. He hits on like you can buy real estate property right now with zero money and like all this. He goes into like this whole thing. These guys who come up with, I don't want to call them schemes because maybe they're not, but it's like getting people into buying commercial real estate right now to get rich. Have you heard about these like little like get rich quick purchase commercial real estate? So
what I'd say is residential real estate is tricky. Commercial real estate adds about 20 times the amount of complications.
Way more risky.
It is way more, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And really, real estate is about mitigating your risk. It is a risk versus reward game, just like any other investment is. And if it's the same reason I don't invest heavily in stocks. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Now I have some that I like to gamble with. But that's what it is. I'm gambling with them, and I'm willing to throw $500 into Ford to see how they do this year. And if I lose it all, it doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. Real estate is the same way. Now you can gamble big on residential real estate. You're unlikely to lose it all because people need a place to live, right? But when times get real tough, commercial real estate is the first to dry up. So.
Well, that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Dude, this is kind of funny because I was going up what is it? What's the Choctawhatchee Bay Bridge? Is that on 331?
Choctawhatchee.
Choctawhatchee?
Well, I mean, that's the way I've always called it. I don't know if I'm right or not.
Choctawhatchee. Anyway.
Does Google have a pronunciation for that?
Anyway, the Choctawhatchee. Choctaw. Yeah, Choctaw Bridge. That's 331, right? If you follow 331 all the way up into Funkiac.
Defunkiac
Springs. Defuniac Springs. At one point in time, I haven't been down that road. I used to be a sales rep for Sunbelt Rentals. I don't know if you knew that. So I rented out heavy equipment.
I just did a deal with United, so...
What now?
I just did a deal with United. You're going to have to help me out with Sunbelt now.
Yeah, I probably can. I know the general manager over there. But what was really, really funny is if you go up 331 to Defuniac Springs, which used to be some of my territory, there are developments that were started. So you see the plumbing that came up, and like there's supposed to be like a ton of homes out there, and it's just like grown up over weeds or whatever now. Because those were developments that just quit.
Yeah, they went belly up.
And it's like you have slabs out there with plumbing and everything. I mean, you're talking a ton of homes that
That's
were ready
what
to be built
happens
on.
when it becomes real apparent that hypersupply is hit.
Yeah.
Like to the home developers. And we've had some in Bay County too. I mean, I'm thinking of like...
Oh, there's slabs out there on the beach, on the west end of the beach where they were supposed to build condos.
And Morningside up 231, which has now been taken over by, I think it's D.R. Horton took it over. But, you know, that sat there for years. It was a great long road that I could go shoot on.
Yeah.
And now I can't because there's houses there and they frown upon that.
Well, yeah. But that goes back into the argument about BlackRock and all of that purchasing. Obviously, you're in real estate, so have you heard these tales of like, well, BlackRock's trying to buy up as much residential real estate as possible. The goal is for everybody to be renting by a certain time period.
There's multiple companies that are doing that, and I've seen some that have been successful and some that have failed. And it can be a great business model in that everyone needs a place to live, right? I don't think we're going to reach
Them controlling the market completely.
Well, I don't actually think it would take too much to control the market completely. I think we'd probably be looking at, and I could be wrong here, but between 5 and 15% in order to have a really good hold on the market, because those sales become comps for other sales.
Yeah.
But I think there's too many variables in the market to make that work unless you have really deep pockets that just keep buying.
Really?
Things like apartments going up, like we were talking about earlier, for instance. Why would I spend $2,500 or $3,000 a month on a house to rent if I can get an apartment for $1,600 that's in hyper supply? Right. So there's just a lot of variables, and I'm not saying that that's exactly how this is going to work, but like it.
Well, it used to be like, well, you know, the American dream was like, oh, you go and you purchase your home, you own your home ownership, whatever. But the thing about it is you never own your home because you always got to pay property tax on it. Because the minute that you don't pay property tax, they take your home. So you never, which is kind of like, if you really think about that, actually hear it from your point of view, how can you never own your house, even if you pay it off? You still have to pay the property.
Yeah, well, property taxes in most cases are pretty minuscule compared to the value of the property.
Well, I understand that, but the thing about it is you still have to pay your property tax to take the home that you already spent the money on. You could purchase a home all the way out. It's not like they're going to be like, okay, you didn't pay your property taxes, we're going to pay you for that property at the market value, and we're going to take it away because you didn't purchase property tax. They take the whole freaking home.
Yeah.
That is insane if you think about it, because it's like, if I purchase a home, I don't pay the property tax, and I go to the state and be like, okay, I keep having to pay these property taxes. I don't want to pay these property taxes anymore. Here, you can buy back my house. They won't do it. So it's like, you never own it, right? Like, you can go out, you could purchase a Ford. I know I know
look,
this is a stupid argument.
I can sit here and argue taxes with you till the cows come home, Ron, but it's what we got.
If it's like you go out and you buy a Ford F-150, right? Once you pay it off, like, I could choose not to have a registration on it. Okay, so I don't pay for the registration. I don't pay for the insurance anymore because it's just going to sit in the driveway. I own that vehicle,
not very much
though.
use to you then.
It's not very much use to you, but you can still own it. I still own that vehicle.
Right.
Right?
What are they going to do? Say you can't use your house?
Well, my whole point is, though, is that you will never own your home. You will never own it. And it sucks because a lot of people, we've been forced into this idea of like purchasing a home, owning a house, but you're never going to own it.
So look, this is the way I look at it. I appreciate the services that the county provides me, and the municipality, all of the municipalities provide me, and I'm not thrilled that I have to pay taxes. I would like them to be lower, okay? But if we don't get the money that way, we've got to get the money some other way. And I don't know of another way that I would prefer to have them take money from me. So with that, sales tax is great because we can split it among the tourism.
Yeah.
Right. Bed tax is great because once again, the tourists pay basically all of that unless I decide to do a staycation at the Wingate.
And you pay it.
But for the most part, not having any income tax in the state of Florida, property taxes are how we make a lot of our money for most of the services that we like. So
we make it off we also make it off the 6% or the 6% sales tax.
Well, yeah. So, but what I mean is sales tax.
Yeah.
We have fees for a bunch of different things, and we have property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't love property taxes. I don't want them to go up. I wish municipalities were more responsible, in my opinion, the way I see it, about how we spent our money. But at the end of the day...
What do you mean by that?
Ooh.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I think that there are ways that we can be better with the money that we collect.
Like how?
Oh, Ron.
Cheers,
sir.
You said it. I didn't. Give me an example. Like what?
I mean, we pay a lot of money for studies about how to improve different areas that maybe we could instead of spending that money, we could let the people who own the property in those areas decide what they wanted to do with it. Instead of paying consulting firms to decide on rezoning, we could consult with the people who are stakeholders in the area about what they'd like to do with rezoning, instead of going to people who really don't have any say in what's going on in the area to ask them how they'd like to see more public parks and splash pads, which everybody loves a solid splash pad, except every time they're implemented, they just cost a ton of money for all the other municipality citizens to come use.
Well, that's one thing coming up with Lynn Haven. Well, not coming up with Lynn Haven, but just
I definitely wasn't thinking about Lynn Haven.
Well, you can only be talking about two places when you talk about splash pads.
Okay, it was Lynn Haven.
Yeah. The splash
maybe
pad.
cut that
Actually,
part.
no. It's kind of funny because the splash pad thing is definitely a thing, especially in Lynn Haven. I mean, it's not really a thing, but I mean, I know at one point in time it was like, well, they didn't do it right. Like I've said this to several friends, and I'll say it again. It wasn't done right. There's actually a couple of commissioners that agree with me on this, where it was like, hey, listen, if you're going to build a splash pad for the citizens of Lynn Haven, then anybody who's not a Lynn Havenite or Lynn Havian or whatever, whoever doesn't live in Lynn Haven, should pay to use that. It's not something that your tax dollars would pay for. It's something that the Lynn Haven paid for.
When it comes to the fact that you're going to spend money on an amenity that amounts to, the double or triple digit dollars per citizen.
Well, it's going to cost money to maintain, and if there's no revenue that's being forced in it to at least go to help towards the cost of a repair.
Even just to put it in, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70 a citizen. I mean, and I'm not, don't quote me on the number. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but it's not like this was a negligible amount.
Yeah.
And do you know how many citizens of Lynn Haven have ever been to the splash pads?
Yes. I
mean, while they were operational, that is.
As far as the citizens who use it, I don't know, but I do know this. I know that for a while, when we had moved back and we were living there, living where we live now, my wife would have mommy and me groups at the house, and they'd go over to the splash pad, and they would have to leave one splash pad to go to the other because it was so busy. How many of those people were Lynn Haven citizens? I get what you're saying. Could be a lot. Could be most everybody else, because if you were going to use a splash pad, you either go to the west end of the beach or you go to Lynn Haven.
How many kids fit in a splash pad?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. So even a busy splash pad represents a very, very small portion of the population.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is not I hate splash pads. Okay, that's
No.
not what I'm getting at here.
I know what you're saying.
What
and
I'm saying is we need to be smart about the way that we use our improvement dollars to make sure that they are benefiting we're getting the maximum return.
Yeah.
And
you should be able to get the return to at least be able to cover the maintenance, repairs, and staffing. If it doesn't make, that's why people, when we talk about like the Civic Center, which is a completely different animal, but we'll just say it. Civic centers are a money loser, always have been, always will be. There's only a couple of civic centers throughout the United States that actually make money. And when I say make money, they just come out ahead.
You mean like the Grand Ole Opry, for instance?
But it's like if it's not coming at least breaking even with how much you've put into it, it's not worth it anymore, right?
Well, that's why open air stadiums are a really great plan, because a huge portion of making sure a civic center stays functioning is you can't turn off the climate control, and that's expensive. Yeah, and you have to maintain all of the facilities, and it's just a huge facility to get used 3 days a month.
Well, we just talked about the Civic Center with Michelle Bryant and Brian Granger, and just hearing that whole story. Have you heard that whole thing? Do you know about that whole thing?
I won't claim to be up to speed on it. I mean, I catch a tidbit here and there, but
well, it was like, and Kendall, you can help me out on this if you want, just so it gives reference. But it's like they ended up having to. The insurance company made them do a wind mitigation and storm test on the Civic Center after Hurricane Michael to prove that it was a Category 5. Could be getting that off a little bit. Mm-hmm. They had to prove the damage that was done to the Civic Center was a Cat 5 and that the insurance company was going to have to pay out to actually refurbish the Civic Center.
And I think that part of that was the appeals they were going through with FEMA, because FEMA only gave them 46%, and if they hit 51, FEMA would have to pay the entire bill of them, tearing it down or redoing it. So they were fighting for the extra percent. The insurance company forced the wind mitigation experiment as a part of that legal process.
So they ended up paying out attorneys. They ended up paying out those consultants that you were talking about and all of that to be. So at the end of it, the amount of money that was given by, I think it was given by FEMA, they ended up having to pay out. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. According to...
I might pause you right here and just say, with my level of knowledge on this one, I'll have to speak off the record on the Civic Center. The things that really need to be taken care of by a municipality take a lot of time to break, and it's not sexy to fix the sewer system when no one's realizing issues, or the stormwater system when no one's realizing issues, right? So the time for Lynn Haven to improve their stormwater was 40 years ago as development continued.
Yeah.
Right. But instead of allocating money to something that wasn't a problem at the time because no one was complaining about it, they allocated it to other things. City of Panama City, their time to figure out the sewer system. I mean, a lot of times we've got 60, 70, 80-year-old sewer pipes in the city of Panama City that we should have allocated money for long ago.
Wow.
But that wasn't the sexy thing at the time. There's no legacy to fixing the sewer system that citizens weren't complaining about. Mm. And by the time a elected official comes around to having to deal with the problem, the guy who made the initial decisions long gone or dead. So we run into that, and that's a problem with the political system nationwide is I can create a short-term win for a long-term fail, and I'm not going to be there to deal with it anymore as a politician. Mm. And that presents issues. So now we run into things like Panama City instituting a fire tax, which has its pros. I mean, everyone pays it, which is kind of nice because everyone has access to the fire department. But we don't see an equivalent drop in fees elsewhere. And Lynn Haven raising the rates to cover stormwater improvements.
Yeah.
Why did we not allocate more money to stormwater all along?
Well, I think so. One of the first conversations you and I had was about issues with getting certain things done in development. I think it would be good for the listeners to because a lot of people look at developers, and Alan Branch said this when he came on the show. A lot of people look at I don't know if he said this verbatim. I'm paraphrasing here between what I've said in the past. I can't remember everything that everybody says, but one of the things that I kind of remember is a lot of people look at developers and people. I don't know. Alan Branch did say this. He did say a lot of people look at developers and these business owners and things like that who come along and who want to open things up as being these guys who are these rich bigwigs who whatever. And it's most of the time we put a lot of money on the line that we could lose. And we've put our houses, on the line to lose as leverage and things like that. But one of the things that drawing what he said into what you're saying can easily be said as so much as simple as going to the county saying, hey, I'm developing on this property, and now they're telling you what kind of bush you can plant or what is the size of the piping. I think you were the one that told me about the size of the piping for a fire hydrant. Things like that that change on the fly, and any type of change that makes actually holds you back for months and months and months for getting something done. A lot of people don't understand that. Maybe you can kind of run through getting a property set up and.
So I think those couple things that you mentioned are very true. I won't go into specifics, but we had a property that the municipality asked us to add 100-something trees, which would have had to be in the parking lot and would have killed the parking ratio. So the tenant could no longer come in by the own city's regulation. And it's things like those. Or another property where we were trying to develop this, it was next to a conservation park. And we only were required a 4-inch water line for the fire hydrant. But in the off chance that someone eventually wanted to develop the conservation park on the other side of this property, which can't be developed by their own code, they asked us to upsize the piping to a 6-inch so they had additional flow for future development, which doesn't make any sense because you can't develop the conservation park. And it's things like that where somewhere in the code it says we can do blank, but there's no thought put behind it that cause real issues. Or City of Panama City has what's known as the Gateway Overlay District, which creates a bunch of architectural design standards for properties within 400 feet of major roads. And the city's definition of major roads might not help out developers in what a developer might consider an area that's cost-effective to build in. For instance, 5th Street or Business 98 Millville is part of this Gateway Overlay District. Well, I don't know if you've driven down there recently, but it's not exactly the nicest area of town. And I understand the government's goal to increase the beautification of Millville. However, if you create a bunch of arbitrary restrictions that make it more difficult to build in an area that's already depressed, where a developer's taking an increased risk to begin with, they're just not going to develop. So rather than enticing nice development, which seems to be the intent of the code, you entice developers to shy away from the area. Yeah. And the way that I personally feel like the code should work is that if the private sector has determined a general specification for building beautification, 23rd Street, for instance, I would not be thrilled as Publix or Walmart if someone put a tin shack in my parking lot. Okay? Because the private sector has already determined that we need nice buildings there.
Man.
So if you want to take an area that has developed a bunch of nice buildings and say, we're going to codify this and say that in order to build something here, it has to match or exceed this standard, I'm fine with that. However, if you're going to take a depressed area and say that it needs to look like 23rd Street, that's a little excessive. And instead of promoting nice development, you're discouraging all development. And that's the problem that I find with these kind of one-size-fits-all rules. And that brings me to another point with a lot of these municipalities, and that's they set the standard so high that any development has to come to them for approval because no one can develop at that standard. So every single development, council has veto power over. And I'm a firm believer in private property rights, and that if it falls within a reasonable standard, you should be able to do it without a bunch of red tape.
Oh man, it goes into. I think I brought this up with somebody. In order to stand out though nowadays, especially with marketing, you have to put stuff out there that is going to be like, oh, and it's like. There's the reason why, like, when I was running for office, I put out memes, I put out videos, and people would be like, oh, that's so horrible. You lost so many people. People are talking, and they're being negative. And I was like, people are talking about me.
Yeah.
Like, people are talking. First of all,
No press is bad press.
People
I
are
mean,
not-
that's not 100% true, but
people aren't going to talk about a guy that's like, I served my country and now I want to come home and I want to serve my community. Here I am. Here's my family. Here's a perfect picture of that or whatever. If people don't know you, they're not going to talk about that. People talk about you when you come out and you put out some stupid meme and and you put something up there that's dumb, and then people know who you are. It's it might not be popular, but it works.
Things that we've put out there that I've just gotten a bunch of negative comments about. One of them was the Trump billboard. And I'm like, look, I don't care who you voted for. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's the way I
funny.
see it.
Yeah.
The other one, we had a hiring billboard we did where we had a guy in a suit and we put my dog's head on it. And I got so many comments about that. And this is when I was just kind of starting the business, and my last name, believe it or not, is the same as my dad's.
Yeah.
So everyone thought my dad got out of his business and started the real estate company.
Dude, I know exactly.
Yep. And so my dad got more calls than I did. He got calls from people like, I don't really like your marketing, son. And it's like, oh, well.
That's my son.
Well, that's my son.
Yeah, no, my dad.
But it was weird, but people saw it, and that's the important part. Like, and I don't mean 100% the important part. I don't want people thinking there were a bunch of crazy folks, but you knew we started a company, and that's was the wow
was
factor
the
we
goal.
needed when we were first starting out. So,
No, I think you got to have those negative. That's the reason why people are like, that whole thing of like, bad publicity is good publicity. Any publicity is good publicity. I actually believe that because it doesn't matter what. I mean, heck, how many scandals has Trump been involved in whenever it's come to whatever? All it does is just build his name more and more.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not negatively impacting him. I really don't.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't think. Now I get it. There are the occasional stuff that's out there that's a little bit too much.
there are some things that will absolutely ruin your career, and you have to be careful not to go down that road.
Yep.
I can tell you one that we've also got some grief on. We have a pint glass program.
Yeah.
And we're in something like 15 bars across Bay County. And we release a new pint glass every year and donate those cases to different bars. So our names are on pint glasses throughout the county. And you get people who don't like to drink. And I'm like, that's fine. No problem. You can either go to this bar and get a water in our pint glass or don't go to the bar, which is honestly the more common thing. And it's
What do you think? Do you think we'll eventually beat that out?
What?
The whole drinking aspect thing of like being on the Bible Belt and the alcohol.
I mean, I can look at the.
I think eventually
I can look
it'll
at history, and 100 years ago, there were a heck of a lot more dry counties than there are today. In fact, one of my biggest real estate fails. I'll tell you this one. This would be a good story. I took on a listing in Mariana while I was down in Tampa with Berkshire Hathaway. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is a shoe-in. Like, I know 3 or 4 folks I went to school with that are in site selection for some major restaurant brands. And it was right off the interstate. It was on a nice highway. It's 2 acres, exactly what they're looking for. Took the listing and submitted it to a few of them and went through their site selection criteria. And one of my best friends in college, it was in site selection for a very, very large company that does restaurants. On my recommendation, pushed it through. Well, I got about 2 months into this, and they said, Chris, the deal's dead. And I was like, why? Like, I can't get liquor. Like, what do you mean you can't get liquor? They're like, Mariana is in Jackson County. It's a dry county. I was like, you know what? Of my entire site selection process,
there's only one place you can get liquor in Mariana.
Well, this was 10 years ago, before it was moist.
There's only one place that I know of that has a wet bar in Mariana still, and it's Ruby Tuesdays. Is it Ruby Tuesdays? Ruby Tuesdays.
Well, that's been there for a long time, but see,
they're
they
the only
started.
one that has like a.
They started without liquor at all, and it's become available since then.
Yeah.
But what I thought was a shoe-in, I realized I didn't even think about there being dry counties.
Yeah.
Like, and I ended up not being able to sell the piece, and I felt really bad about it because I took a listing I couldn't sell.
So my father-in-law lives in Moore County in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Ring a bell? Moore County?
Not really.
Lynchburg?
Oh, you know what? Yeah. I've been there. Also a dry county. You know how I know? Because I tried to get some Jack Daniels there. And
Jack Daniels. You can buy.
Turns out all the surrounding counties have a lot of liquor stores.
They sell Jack Daniels as commemorative bottles when you go to the distillery.
You know how I know that? Because I bought one.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you still can't buy.
So you can buy a bottle, and if it happens to be filled with whiskey, that's a different story. But you can't buy any whiskey.
You could buy the whiskey in the bottle from the distillery.
No, you can only buy a bottle, and it happens to be filled with whiskey. Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because whenever we go up there to go visit, I'm like. Because normally when we go up there, we'll stay, 3-4 days. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of property up there, so I've hunted on there and stuff like that. And so when we go up there, it's always like, right as we're leaving Huntsville, Alabama, my wife always looks over at it's like, hey, if you need because she, I drink whiskey quite a bit, and
occasionally,
every night. So, but and then I'd just be like, oh yeah, I got to pick up a bottle before we get over there. So like now it's like I actually have a place that's right there on the side of the interstate. Like I have a designated place.
And they are in business because of people like
I
Ron
walk
Keel.
in, I think the guy, he's got a goatee, he's a bigger dude. Every time I come in there, he's like, hey, how's it going? Going hunting?
It's a real win when someone a state and a half away knows your face at the liquor store.
I'm going over to Jack Danielsville. You know how it works. I gotta buy it here before I get over there. And those commemorative bottles are actually expensive down at the distillery because I've sat there before and been like, oh man, I really want a bottle of whiskey. I'm gonna go down there and I'll go to Jack Daniels and I'll walk in.
You know what I don't need? A $200 bottle of Jack.
Holy crap! Am I really spending this on a bottle of whiskey? Like
I bought a green label while I was up there. You know what the green labels are in the portions of the warehouse that have the most temperature swing. So it's like at the eve of the roof is what they do. So it's where the black is all towards the center of the warehouse. So it's pretty
huge freaking thing going on there though with the EPA. Did you know about this?
I didn't.
Okay, so if
Tell
you
me
drive,
about it. I love a good federal organization.
If you drive across like Moore County, they have, you'll notice on all the signs that are there and like even on homes, they have that black sludge You know what I'm talking about? That's like it's like a rundown. You can look up a video if you want to, Kendall.
Do we have black sludge in Moore County, Tennessee?
Well, it's like it's residue that's brought in from Jack Daniels whenever they're putting these things in the barrel house and the ventilation system.
Yeah.
Those ventilation systems don't have the proper filters or haven't for years and years and years. So what's happening right now is that you're starting to see this black residue that's accumulating on signs, homes, and things like that from the distillery. Well, the EPA and Jack Daniels were in a battle about a year and a half ago, where it was like, no, we told them they were supposed to change out this filtration system and all this stuff. Well, the thing about it is right now, and I'm not saying my family's involved with this or my wife's side of the family's involved with this. They probably should be. I'm not a sue happy person. I'm the type of person, if it doesn't really affect you, then you shouldn't sue about it unless you actually have something that's actually worth a damn.
What were the actual losses? That would be my question.
Well, this black residue that's showing up on signs.
Well,
and on
I'm not
homes,
saying in this case there isn't a loss.
well,
I'm just saying in general.
What I'm saying here is they've got this black residue that's showing up on signs, homes, and things like that, businesses. And so, of course, you have to pay to have that stuff washed off, but that stuff's in the air, which means that's what you're breathing in. And so Jack Daniels, which isn't even an American company anymore, I don't think. I think it was bought from some company in Germany. We might want to fact check some of this shit before.
Can we determine where Jack Daniels is owned?
Kendall's over there. He's like, I've been asleep half this time. Now I actually have to start looking shit up. But he likes doing it. He's good at it.
Thank you, Kendall.
Yeah, but
can we just give a quick shout out to Kendall
Yeah.
for all the fact checking
He
of the
does.
things that we've spewed out of our mouths that may or may not be correct?
Well, I want to make sure this is just because this is actually a big deal. I think that I don't know if they started any class action lawsuits, but like these people are breathing in whatever it is that that company's doing. This comes back into Bay County a little bit, but we'll bring it back there in a second.
Okay.
So it's like when you start talking about, obviously big thing, right? Like you want to sit there and you want to say, we want industry, but like these are the types of things that happen to a community. But with this residue, with it destroying your home, you got to pay for the cleaning now to have that done. The city is having to pay for all these signs to be washed. This stuff has been tracked over into, I think, other surrounding counties. I'm not going to name them. I want to say Franklin is one of them, but it might not be. But I know
Franklin County, Tennessee.
Surrounding counties are having the residue that's like showing up on their
It's
stuff.
interesting that it's just showing up now because Jack Daniels has been there for a
No,
long
it's been
time.
there for
Okay.
years.
Okay, gotcha.
It's been there for years, but just now, like
They're
dude, if
figuring it out now.
I want to look up pictures and show you, because if you look at the accumulation over the years, how like a stop sign will look versus like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, now. And then it's like, holy crap, that's in the air. So when you're going and you're walking on the square in Lynchburg, you're breathing that shit in, like, because that's where all that ventilation is
probably not an issue for the occasional tourist to Lynchburg, but the folks who live there.
It could probably be a big deal. But no, like that's a huge deal. So no, when you were talking about the warehouses, I'm like, dude, those things, and they're building so many of those things. Like,
Well, see, this is a perfect real estate example though, because most people, I'd say even people in Lynchburg are probably pretty pro Jack Daniels because it's a huge portion of their economy.
yeah,
Like it brings dollars in, it employs people, it keeps everybody moving in the right direction. Like if Jack Daniels were to close, and I don't know much about Lynchburg, Tennessee, but I'd say it'd probably be a huge detriment to Lynchburg.
well, I looked at going to go work for them.
Yeah.
When I got out
Yep,
of
there's still a American company owned by, where was it, Brown Foreman.
Oh, I thought it was owned by Germany. My bad.
I think you're thinking of what, Budweiser?
AB.
No, I was thinking about Jack Daniels. I thought they sold
I
out.
think InBev's a Japanese company now, right?
No, what is Anheuser-Busch?
AB InBev.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a fact check. I lost. Okay, Jack Daniels still owned. They're American.
Well, so multiple portions of this. So we have like the impact on the local economy. And then we also have the fact that Americans want whiskey, clearly, or we wouldn't be buying it.
Yeah.
So we come into a NIMBY situation, not in my backyard, which is a huge problem that we have throughout kind of the real estate commercial property owners realm, is people want these things, but they don't want them in their backyard. So we have a dilemma in how do we continue to make this, but also make it cost effectively in a way that people that live near it are good with it.
Yeah.
And the government can absolutely kill things by overregulation, but that doesn't diminish the fact that no one in Lynchburg is happy about black residue that they're breathing in and is clouding their stop signs. You know, like that's a very real thing. But what do we do about it? That's the question. Like Jack
Well,
Daniels.
I mean, they could have done the filtration system that the EPA had put out for them.
Well,
But then again,
I'm
I know
speaking
government-
completely out of knowledge here, right? But I would guess that the filtration system that the EPA suggested was probably quite cost prohibitive.
It could have been cost prohibitive, but it could have also been it probably could have affected how the aging process happens on their bottles as well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that
and was
probably
this
a
was this
major
system available at the same level that it's available today?
Yeah.
30 years ago when the problem started.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to ask yourself all these questions because it seems real simple until you dig into how does this affect everything around it.
Well, and here's the funny thing, and I'm not trying to point fingers, and I know somebody that's listening to this probably will think that I am, but it's like you want to sit there and you want to complain about that distillery and how, oh, well, they owe me something now, right? Because of this. But my whole thing is the property that you own and that you live on would not be worth the amount of money that it is today if it wasn't for that distillery.
Well, and I think this
That's another
I could take
aspect.
this to a whole nother level, and that's the country was founded on keeping rights and regulations at a local level. If you don't like it, you can move. I mean,
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty simple way to think about
it's
it.
kind of
Like,
funny because a second ago you had said that, oh well, a large amount of the income is actually coming in from Jack Daniels. That's what gives everybody their job there. 100% true because. Again, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on that.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, when I got out of the Army, we were trying to decide where we were going to go back. Now, we had a townhouse here. It was still destroyed by Hurricane Michael. And so it was like, okay, we can sell that off, and then we'll move up here. And it's like, what am I going to do here? Even there in Lynchburg, it was like the only place you go work is Jack Daniels. Well, if you go to Jack Daniels and like, hey, I want a job, I mean, they're paying $18 an hour, but then a home that's there in Lynchburg, it's like at the time was like $300,000.
much more than you could afford on $18 an hour.
Yeah, $300,000. So it's like the people that are living in that area, and this is 100%. I'm not saying, dude, Lynchburg. I need to. My father-in-law can weigh on this a lot more than I can, but it's kind of funny because Lynchburg is. It's a weird duck, right? It's a tourist area because a lot of people come there and visit, but they're not getting millions like we get, right? They're getting a certain amount of people. You could never really start something up in Lynchburg that's just going to blow up and be big. And that's what makes it good.
Well,
because it's like a
the
small
entire
town.
tourist trap is
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels. And I'd kind of like to amend my initial statement there and say, I understand the people who have had homesteads there for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Like, they might have a claim. But the folks who moved there, let's put it this way. I'm going to bring it back to flying. I was at a little airport one time that I flew into, and they had a sign on the wall that said, please adhere to the noise abatement procedures for runway 18, because they just built a housing development next door to the airport, and shockingly, there were airplanes landing there. And I think that's kind of a portion of it. Is like, you moved to this area.
Yeah, no.
And this, whether you knew or should have known, is not my problem.
Yeah.
Right? But this was here before you.
Yeah.
And so if you were here and your family's been here for 100 years, we can talk about stuff. And I'm not trying to release Jack Daniels from their civil liability. That's not what I'm doing. But at the same time, there are consequences that come with every good.
Yeah.
Every good thing has a negative thing that is attached to it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, if you want something that drives your economy, there's going to be some negatives to it.
But I think with that area, it's just a bunch of retirees. They're just a bunch of...
and they moved there,
Yeah.
like they moved there knowing that Jack Daniels was there.
Yep.
It's not right to penalize Jack Daniels.
Did you find any videos with the black residue that I was talking about?
No, I couldn't find anything from that. It was all like the tar sands up in Canada and stuff.
Yeah, but it's bad up there. I mean, you can't go from here to there
I'm going to
without
have
seeing
to
it.
either take your word for it or we'll have to do a field trip.
Ooh, hey. We're down for a field trip,
Would
right,
this
Kendall?
would this be the first ever 850 podcast field trip?
It would.
Sounds like an opportunity I can't pass up.
No, we'd have to go look at all the stop signs and all the...
We could fly there and not even pay attention to the noise abatement procedures. If there's any FAA representatives listening to this, I was saying that jokingly, and I absolutely will pay attention to the noise abatement procedures.
But no. But when when you bring that on our level, on the local level, we don't really have much industry here. So
Well, think about like paper mill, Arizona Chemical, like we have. It's like people who move to the Millville area and complain that it smells bad.
Well, and so I've tried to explain that to people over the years too, because they used to say, "Oh, the paper mill smells so bad." It's actually Arizona Chemicals.
Yeah.
Arizona Chemicals is what smells bad.
Yeah, well,
The paper mill.
they went hand in hand for a while. Now the paper mill's gone, and it still smells bad. So,
It's definitely Arizona Chemicals. Actually, I'll get you to weigh on that. This will be we'll probably make that the last topic.
Okay.
The paper
I got another
mill.
2 or 3 hours in me.
I don't know if Kendall does. Kendall, do you? He's like, talk as much as you want. I don't give a shit. I'm taking a nap.
I normally go to bed at like 1, 2.
How? Oh, we're good. Oh, okay. Arizona, the paper mill. It needed to shut down. I think it did because of the population of trees that we had. So, but as far as a hit on the economy, being in real estate, did you see anything from that kind of negatively impacted anything?
I mean, the loss of jobs was important.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Do you remember how many jobs were lost
I don't remember off the top of my head now.
from the paper mill?
But a couple of things I can say. There was and not the whole thing, obviously, but there was an aging population at the paper mill. So I think a lot of them were able to just retire. And then there were also quite a few trades there that were in demand that were able to find other jobs. And especially with the rebuilding of Tyndall, there are a couple companies that had contracts there that were able to soak up a good portion of the jobs that were lost there. So I don't think that it ended up being a huge job loss for the economy.
No.
In fact, I think it allowed us to fill some positions that probably wouldn't otherwise be filled. And that brings us to a point you made earlier. There's a lot of companies that move here and aren't able to sustain themselves because of the skilled labor that they require.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a lot of things to make efforts in that area. I think Haney has done a great job of adding programs that are needed for in-demand jobs. I mean, you moved around a bit. Like, how many people from your high school class are still here?
Actually, quite a freaking few.
See,
Quite a few.
my experience did, in a lot of cases, and I'm not saying all of them, but maybe a solid third moved away
Yeah.
almost immediately, went to school somewhere else, did something else, and maybe a portion of them have come back. But I think a lot of people move away from this area. And a lot of that has to do with either can't get a job that pays what they needed to pay, or don't have the education to get the job that pays what it needs to pay. And that's a two-sided coin, because if I'm starting a business here, I have to have a workforce that's able to, A, work for what I can pay them, and B, have the experience or education to do the things I need them to do.
Well,
And I think we've had 2 or 3 instances of companies who've moved here, even built some big buildings and made some things happen that just weren't able to find the workforce that they could A, afford, and B, had the education they needed in order to sustain life in Bay County. And that's a big problem.
Well, I'll open up about something, and I know Kendall's going to know about this because I haven't talked about it I haven't brought it up on the podcast, and I've only told a handful of people about this because of I'm going to keep her name hush hush, but this hit really hard with me when I was running for office. I had went to my first forum, which was at Gulf Coast Community College. I know was up there on stage with Daniel and with Tommy, and I was lost in the sauce, man. I wasn't expecting the cameras, I wasn't expecting the lights, as many people that were there, and I just kind of mine went blank. There was a segment of that was said where, I was talking about how we couldn't just rely on tourism. We had to bring in alternative resources to be able to sustain growth in our economy as far as like our workforce goes. And I was made fun of it. I was made fun of by one of the other candidates that, was up on stage, and he was just like, "Oh, tourism's where we get all our money, whatever." And I was like, yeah. And that's
quite frankly, it is. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's the problem that I'm trying to say. This is a problem. And so I thought I'd walked out of that debate or that forum, and I was like, what am I doing here? This is completely stupid, whatever. It was like 3 or 4 days after I got a phone call. My phone number was on the county website, so anybody could look it up. I had a phone call that came in, lady, whatever, I answer. She's just like, "Hey, is this Ron Keel?" And I was like, "It is." And so she was like, "My name is so-and-so." She says, "I just wanted to let you know what you said the other night at your forum really hit me hard." And I was like, okay. And so she's like, let me explain where I'm coming from.
Which portion of what I said at the forum?
Yeah.
Help me out.
And she said she had moved here in 2007 with her son and her husband. And her husband had ran out on her and her son. So he had ran off. So she was a single parent that was raising her son in his last year of high school. And her son ended up working at a couple places on the beach. He was slinging beer. He was a bartender, server at different restaurants all over the beach. And he got his girlfriend pregnant. And
her son did.
Yeah, her son
making sure I have the story clear.
Her son got his girlfriend pregnant, and he just really didn't know how he was going to be able to afford a family because he was living with her and everything, just living.
Sounds expensive.
Working from bar to bar and then working from restaurant to restaurant. And so she had said that she goes, my son was like you. And I was just kind of like, lady, like, you don't know who I am. She's like, he joined the military because that was the only thing he thought. So he married his girlfriend so she'd get the benefits. And he married her, and then he joined the United States Army. He got a job as I think she said he was like an 88 Mike, so he was like a truck driver. Okay. And first deployment comes up. He goes to Afghanistan. And, of course, he got killed. He got blown up.
Wow.
And so she said, she was like, she was straight up honest with him. She goes, I don't think you're going to win. She says, but you have my support 100% and my neighbor's support. She said, because she said, I'm not going to blame the local government or anybody on my son's death. She said, but the way that I look at it is if my son would have had more opportunity here, he would have never joined. I mean, dude, you could, that's a play, I'm not going to put too much. I understand her frustration on it, but that's a real thing. Like, that dude did not feel like there was any, she said to me, and this was hard to hear, especially for somebody that joined the military, but I think this resonates with a lot of veterans out there. She said, my son never joined the United States military to serve his country. He didn't care anything about the war that was over there. He didn't care about any of that. He joined out of necessity. He joined out of necessity. He had to have money to be able to support his family, and he knew that he wasn't going to get the benefits or anything like that, or any of the health insurance or anything like that for his wife and his son, which is now as actually his son now is. I've met him. Yeah. She was just like, this was something that
and then the question would be, what can we do to change that?
Well, yeah, it's all about. But what I'm saying though is like when I was running for office, it was to offer more for the people that was in the community, and I was demonized for it. A, but B, nobody else is. There are people out there that hear these stories, and like that right there was like. That was one of the reasons why I was like, I can't really back out, because it was like one of those, there's people out there that see that there has to be better opportunity here. But like, just as much, well, maybe you don't, maybe you do. We have to have more here to offer for our kids than just, hey, you want to go, how, I'm not saying, there is nothing wrong. Here's the thing.
What I would say about this, Ron, is that this is a holistic picture we have to look at. The more expensive it is to develop property, the less money I have to pay my employees. And I know that sounds oversimplified, and it is, because it's not a A-B correlation, right? But it's not just that expense. It's also, what do my taxes look like? What do my utilities cost? What does it take to maintain the landscaping?
There are billion-dollar industries that would come here in a heartbeat.
If what?
Well, yeah, you'd have to make the proper accommodations to be able to make it happen.
Well, but that's the thing. Industries want people to fight, or want municipalities to fight over them. Yeah. They don't want to have to fight to come somewhere. And there are places that will fight over them. Yeah. And as long as we keep saying tourism is what we want, and we keep all these barriers in place, I've heard government officials come out and say, "Oh, well, for that industry, we'll make accommodations." It's like, no, as long as they have to come play your game, they're out.
Yeah,
like, you need to make reasonable laws to begin with.
Yeah,
like, it's not about let's just make some accommodations when something happens. No, I don't want to fight your 2-year battle to come and have you make some accommodations for me. Make it easy for me to come here. That's how you make it happen.
Well, that was the whole thing. And like, I'm sitting there, and like I said, I've told several people that I have no intentions of ever running again. But one of those is because of that. You got people that are out there that have real issues, and you guys want to sit there and talk about paid parking at the pier. And I'm going, dude, this is what you have to talk about? I'm worried about what my kids are going to be doing when they graduate high school. And you want to talk right now about a pier like that? very small, very, very small compared to what you're actually doing. You're dealing with people's lives. And people just didn't see that when I was running. But when I hear those types of stories, I mean, those are the types of things that, you know, I have another one. You know, there's a girl that had worked here as a waitress on the beach for years and years, and then she ended up going into adult film industry and all that kind of crap. I mean, there's several stories that I have where it's like, the only thing we really...
Is this what we want to be known for? Tourism and the adult film industry.
Yeah.
And
pushing people away
frankly,
that don't.
I mean,
but my point is getting back, rounding it back around. People that are moving away that don't come back. It's because we don't have any here that's worth staying here over.
And that's a big portion of it. And I don't mean to say this in a derogatory sense, but the people who really have ambition tend to go elsewhere because they can't fulfill a lot of their ambition here.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's everyone. Like, there's some great business owners. There's some great folks that have moved back and made things happen. So I'm not saying like there's zero ability for ambition here.
There's opportunity here if you're looking at it in the right place. Mm-hmm. But we don't have many places to look for opportunity. That's my point. It's like. Yeah, I mean, are you going to be successful if you go start up a bar on the beach tomorrow? Probably, maybe not, whatever. But is that the only industry that you want to go into?
Look at where our workforce lies. So if you add up healthcare and Bay County schools and the military,
that's it.
What else is there? I mean, that's what you can fact check me on this, but I think that's over 50% of our jobs.
It is.
So
education is.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to education being a large portion of the workforce.
No.
I'm not saying that, and I'm not opposed to military being a large portion of the workforce. But if you look at those things, there's very few jobs that are
applicable to be able to make the standard.
I mean, we're paying travel nurses ridiculous amounts of money to come here.
Yeah, and then our nurses are traveling other places to make more money.
Yeah, that's true.
I know a guy right now.
I've
met him at a couple places.
I don't know if we got enough time to tackle the healthcare system tonight, but there's things to be said for that.
Well, I think it's funny because that was one of the things that came up at the county level too, where it's like healthcare. Well, we don't touch healthcare, and it's like actually you do, and it's like no, we don't. We don't touch anything with healthcare. Yeah, you do because you attract the jobs that are going to come to this area. Mm-hmm. For the economical standpoint, you attract the jobs that are coming to this area that are actually going to bring health insurance. They're going to bring better doctors and better medical care, better health care.
So I can circle back around to Beer and Bible again because 2018, when we had the hurricane, we lost about half of Beer and Bible. And it wasn't an immediate loss in a lot of cases. They were just got to a point where they're like, there's not really much here for me, and everything got more expensive, and it wouldn't make financial sense for me to stay here. So they left. Yep. And sometimes it was 2 years after the storm. But, you know, that's... And that's the majority of my experience with young people here is probably Beer and Bible because I don't see many people buying multi-million-dollar warehouses in their 20s. Like, it's just not part of my job description. But
I got those numbers for you too if you wanted
numbers?
them. The
job numbers?
Yes. So retail 14%, healthcare and social assistance 12, accommodation, food 11. Construction 7, manufacturing 4, education 6, public administration 3.4, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting 0.5.
What about military? Is military in there?
Military, they kind of keep it hush hush, but I mean, I think we can look at it as we wouldn't have the boom if Michael hadn't destroyed Tyndall Air Force Base, and how they're handling it now, obviously they don't know what a military town needs, and they're kind of mishandling it.
I'm a CCIM, which is a Certified Commercial Investment Member.
Yeah.
And there's an entire week of classes that I had to take to go through this that talks all about what one job brings to an economy. And I don't have all the numbers off the top of my head, but basically one military job brings probably 2 people to the area. And for every 2 people, you're probably going to need another 2 or 3 jobs. So you're just looking at, and one of those are included in the jobs that they must have, right? But for every person, you've got to have another person who is willing to work at Publix and serve them, or willing to work at Applebee's, or willing to work at, the oil change place. Like, every person that you bring in then has an effect on the rest of the economy because they need more things. So by Tyndall bringing in more jobs, you end up with a huge inflow of new jobs, much greater than the jobs that Tyndall provided.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think of it that way, Tyndall adding jobs adds thousands of jobs to the economy as a whole.
Yeah. Well, no, I've been saying that. A lot of people have been trying to focus on the military aspect. This was something that was going on when I was running for office. A lot of people try to hone in on, this is going to bring so many people here, and they're only accounting for military. I'm like,
no,
contractors,
everybody who has a
everything
car
who
needs
supports
to
them.
get that car service, right? Everybody who lives here needs to eat here, and they're either going to buy their food from a grocery store or they're going to go out to eat. In either case, we need more people to serve them.
But the other point of it was like, you're bringing in so many other jobs than just military. I mean, you look at the Navy base, I don't think, it's probably something stupid like maybe 1% of the Navy base is military members. If that, it might be like 0.8, 0.7. Everybody who really makes up that base is civilians. What now?
I wonder how many people work at Tyndall, because I know there's a huge air operations center here that's not even like under the Tyndall command.
Yeah, I know. It's air defense, yeah. Yeah, you're right. The majority of the people that are on these bases are actually contractors or civilian.
And we got a bunch of National Guard here, too.
Tyndall has 3,000 active duty military personnel, about 800 civilian employees, so GSs.
Oh, okay.
Total base population, including active duty, family members, retirees, civilians, Guard Reserve, and I think contractors is about 20,000, a little over 20,000.
Wow. That's a huge portion of our economy.
Huge.
I mean, and that doesn't even count all the people who are supporting them in day-to-day life.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's my point on that.
Yeah.
It's like,
so we got military and tourism.
And it looks like those were prior to the rebuild because of the 2018 Hurricane Michael.
Okay, I've decided we're definitely not adding this in.
I play golf about 2 to 3 times a week, and I play with guys who still make 6 figures a year, and they complain about the price of golf all the time. And I'm like, dude, if you can't afford it, don't freaking play. Like, it's very, very simple.
Well,
it's
I
like,
mean,
well,
it's not just golf courses. It's
I will tell you, though,
I don't think that the private sector needs to have to compete with the public sector.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
get it.
frustrates me.
But you're I'm talking about golf courses now, just because you got me on that topic. Golf courses, I'll say this. The golf courses here in this area are living down in Tampa opened my eyes to golf. Because I played golf here I've been swinging a golf club since I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Me too. Is putt-putt, Coconut Creek?
No, my grandfather was a pastor, and he played with other pastors, so he used to play at Sunny Hills all the time.
Okay.
And so, I would always go with him for that. And then...
what do you think about the golf courses here? Are they good, not good?
They suck.
Oh, okay.
Isn't
there a Nicklaus course here?
Yeah, we've got at Bay Point. I play it. I just got done. I've played it probably 3 times this month. But the thing about it is like, and that's It's not a bad course. Nicklaus Golf Course is nice. For the amount of money that they charge, though, they don't do what it takes to keep it. You know what I mean?
You
Like,
want to know a fun story?
well, the thing about it is, well, hold on, let me finish this real
Okay,
quick.
you finish that one,
You
then
would
I'll tell
have to
mine.
play on a course somewhere else for the same amount of money. So go down to Tampa and pay the same amount of money that you would play for Bay Point here. Bay Point here, a lot of people put that up on a pedestal like it's like this great golf course. And it is. It's a very, very nice course. I'm not saying that it's not a bad course. But what I am saying is that if you pay that same amount of money to go play a golf course down in Tampa, it would blow your socks off compared to what Bay Point is doing. You're down there and you're like, whoa, like I'm on a nice course. Bay Point's a nice course, but the way in which it's kept, the way in which the service is. At Bay Point, it's more of like this family atmosphere where you're talking back and forth with somebody and it's like this, oh, nice. But if you're paying $150 to go play at a course down in Tampa, you know, for one round, 18 holes, $150, the service is going to be completely different. You get treated completely different. Now, if you play like TPC, you know, you're going on a professional golf course, you're looking at about $300 a game, and there is completely different. So it's like these tiers. Here we don't have.
What do you get for your money?
Yeah,
That's the question.
Yeah. So you're not getting your money's worth here. And then there's no tiers here. It's like you have Signal Hill. Signal Hill is a practice course. You do not play Signal Hill and as like a nice, but like to pay $80 to play there, $90 to play there for a green fee. It's like, nah, dude, I have to go get my own cart. I have to take it to my truck, get my clubs, put it in the cart, bring it back to a starter, have a starter take an attitude with me, you know, because it's like, hey, you got to get in line, whatever. For $80, no, or you know, Bay Point at least gets some of that. I don't know. I'm big on customer service when it comes to what I'm paying for. So
We
golf
would call
courses,
that guest service at Universal Studios. Okay,
you want to talk about golf courses with me? I pay to go play the Palm which is the same course that Tiger Woods won on back in 1993.
wow, you're really into this.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I go play that golf course. I'll pay $115 for a green fee after 12. I don't touch a damn thing. Like the golf course pretty much takes care of everything. Do you think I go to the bar to go order a drink? No, they got a cart girl that comes around and takes my drink order. She actually looks attractive. It's like a nice like,
she's
thing.
probably decent looking too. Yeah.
Well, my whole thing is like I pay the same amount to play. Actually, I pay more to play on a golf course here, where I don't get that same service. Where I can go down to Disney and I can play a professional grade golf course that Tiger Woods has set foot on, and I pay less there than what I do here and get better service there.
I did have dinner with Jack Nicklaus once.
Okay, that's what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. He introduced himself, and I was like, "Cool, random dude."
Well, it's kind of like,
and then he got up and was the keynote speaker.
Oh, you didn't know that you were talking?
I didn't know who Jack Nicklaus was.
Oh my God! No.
It's all right. I did that. And
Where was this at?
This was I was actually right behind him at a different table, but I talked to him several times, and this was at the Real Estate Trends Conference for Florida State a few years back. So I just talking to this random dude that I thought was like in real estate, and
You thought he was
like,
random.
he was like, oh yeah, I play golf sometimes.